I just turned 29 last weekend, and I thought I'd seen it all when it came to my family's drama. I was wrong. My name's Evan, and if you've ever had a birthday party turn into an ambush disguised as a family gathering, you'll probably understand where I'm coming from. It started normal enough. Cake on the counter, balloons my cousin's kids had tied up, the usual small talk about traffic and weather. I was actually feeling good for once. I bought my house 2 years ago after grinding through my 20s, working late nights, saving every bonus check. It's small, but it's mine. And I guess that's the problem. It's mine. Right after dinner, my mom stood up, tapped her wine glass like she was about to give a speech at a wedding, and said in this cheery voice that didn't match the words coming out of her mouth, "We all agree Evan should sell his house and give the money to your sister's baby fund. She needs it more." I swear, for a second, I thought she was joking. Everyone laughed, except it wasn't the "this is ridiculous" kind of laugh. It was the "oh good, he's about to agree" laugh. My cousins actually clapped. My dad just smiled at me like he was proud of her for saying it. And my sister, well, she dabbed at fake tears with a napkin like she was in some bad soap opera. Inside, I felt this wave of heat run through me. Half anger, half disbelief. Who even says that out loud? I just sat there, my hand tightening around my glass. Nobody asked me, nobody warned me. They just decided my life's work, the one thing that kept me sane, should be liquidated to bankroll my sister's life choices. "Evan," my mom said again, as if I hadn't heard her, "don't you think it's time you did something for the family? Your sister's baby is coming. She needs a proper nursery, a bigger house. It's not like you need so much space. You live alone." That last part hit me hard. I live alone because, frankly, I like my peace. But apparently, that makes me the family's ATM now. My aunt leaned over and added, "Think of it as your gift to the next generation. It's a blessing." My uncle nodded. Everyone was looking at me. I took a slow sip of my drink, trying to keep my face neutral, but inside my mind was racing. Do they seriously expect me to sell the only asset I have? Just hand over hundreds of thousands of dollars? My sister sniffled dramatically. "I can't believe you'd even hesitate," she said. "You know I've been struggling since Matt got laid off. We're barely keeping up with rent. You're comfortable. This would change everything for us." That word, comfortable, made my stomach turn. Comfortable? Sure. After skipping vacations, working overtime, eating noodles for a year just to get the down payment together. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a gift. And now they wanted me to just undo it? I glanced around the table. Not a single person looked like they thought this was outrageous. My dad raised his glass toward me. "You're the man now," he said, grinning. "Step up. Do right by your family." And that's when I realized this wasn't just a suggestion. This was a full-on intervention, staged on my birthday, in front of everyone, to pressure me into agreeing. The air felt heavy. My chest was tight, but I didn't show it. Instead, I picked up my phone, unlocked it, and scrolled to something I had saved, something I hadn't planned to share tonight. "I actually got some news this morning," I said, standing up slowly. The room went quiet, all eyes on me. My mom beamed like I was about to announce I'd do exactly what she wanted. My sister straightened up, clutching her napkin like it was a tissue in a Hallmark movie. I cleared my throat, held my phone up, and started reading out loud the message I'd gotten from the bank that morning, the one that made my heart stop when I first saw it. And the second the first sentence left my mouth, every single fork and glass in that room went completely still. "The bank is confirming the transfer of funds you requested has been completed," I read, my voice calm, almost casual. "Full amount, $428,000. Your mortgage has been paid off in full, and your house deed will be mailed to you within 5 business days." You could have heard a pin drop. My mom's smile froze on her face. My sister's fake tears dried up in an instant. My dad actually choked on his wine. And I just stood there, holding my phone, letting the words hang in the air like smoke. I didn't plan it this way. Paying off the mortgage had been a quiet goal I'd been working toward for months. I didn't expect the timing to line up like this. But in that moment, it felt like fate. "So," I said, still standing, my glass in one hand, my phone in the other, "you're asking me to sell something that's now completely mine. Free and clear. You want me to hand over nearly $500,000 because you all what? Took a vote when I wasn't here." Nobody spoke. Even the kids in the living room were quiet. My mom was the first to recover. "That's wonderful news, sweetheart," she said in that patronizing tone she uses when she's about to say something awful. "And now it's even easier. You can sell it for full value and give your sister a fresh start. I just stared at her. Did you not hear a single word I just read? My cousin Mark tried to lighten the mood with a laugh. Hey, man, think of it as an investment in family happiness. You'll be Uncle Evan, the hero. Hero, I repeated. For making myself homeless? My sister crossed her arms, the napkin crumpled in her fist now. You wouldn't be homeless, she shot back. You could rent an apartment. It's just the two of you. Me, I cut in. It's just me. And renting is exactly what I worked for years to escape. I felt my heartbeat in my ears. I wasn't usually this direct with them, but something about that moment made me snap. Do you have any idea how long I saved for that house? How many nights I stayed late at work so I could afford the payments? And you sit here, on my birthday, telling me I should sell it because you think your needs matter more than my entire future. My dad put his hands up like he was the peacemaker. Nobody's saying you have to do it, son. We're just saying it would be the right thing. The right thing. That phrase landed like a punch. My whole life, that's been their line whenever they wanted me to fall in line, to give up a weekend, to loan someone money, to skip something I wanted so my sister could have it instead. Funny, I said slowly, sitting back down. Because the right thing never seems to go both ways in this family. That stung. I saw my mom's jaw tighten. My aunt cleared her throat, but no one said a word. The tension at the table was thick, but for once, I didn't try to smooth it over. Dinner was basically over after that. People picked at their plates in silence. A few of my cousins avoided eye contact. My sister was fuming, whispering to my mom. I could see her husband squeezing her arm under the table, probably trying to get her to calm down. When the cake finally came out, the singing was half-hearted. I blew out the candles, and the room stayed quiet. And in that silence, something clicked in my head. I realized this wasn't just a bad night. This was a pattern, and it wasn't going to stop. If I gave an inch now, they'd expect a mile every time. And that's when the first thought of revenge started forming. Not the petty kind, not yelling or slamming doors, but something bigger, smarter. I smiled to myself as I cut the cake. Thanks for coming, everyone, I said, my voice light. I'll be in touch. The look on my mom's face told me she knew something had shifted, that I wasn't going to just let this go. But she had no idea just how far I was willing to take it this time. A week passed after that birthday dinner, and I didn't hear a word from anyone. No casual texts, no memes from my cousins, nothing. It was the longest my phone had been this quiet in years. At first, I'll admit, it felt good. Peaceful even. But by day 4, my stomach started to sink. In my family, silence doesn't mean forgiveness. Silence means plotting. Sure enough, on Friday evening, my mom called. She didn't even bother with small talk. Your sister's been crying all week, she said, her voice loaded with accusation. She feels like you don't care about her, or the baby. I do care, I said carefully. But I'm not going to sell my house. That's not negotiable. There was a pause on the line, just long enough to make me nervous. Well, my mom said finally, you might want to sit down for this. Your father and I have been talking, and we think we found a solution that works for everyone. We spoke to a realtor. He says you could get top market value right now if you sell quickly. It would be enough for you to help your sister and still rent a decent apartment. I actually laughed out loud. A sharp, bitter laugh that surprised even me. You what? We didn't do anything official, she said quickly, as if that made it better. We just had him look at the property online, and he said he has buyers lined up. It could close in under 60 days if you cooperate. Cooperate. Like this was some joint mission we were all on together. Mom, you don't get to cooperate me out of my own house. Her tone turned icy. You're being selfish, Evan. Your sister's about to bring a new life into this world. She's facing eviction, and you have a house you don't even need. My hand tightened around the phone. Don't even need? I said slowly. Mom, this is my home. My safe place. The only thing that's mine. I nearly worked myself into the ground to afford this, and you think I should just throw it away because my sister had bad luck? She didn't have bad luck, my mom snapped. Matt losing his job wasn't his fault. And your sister's worked hard too. She's going to be a mother. I'm happy for her, I said flatly. But I'm not sacrificing my future so she can have a baby shower with matching curtains. That earned me a cold silence, then a click as she hung up. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the dead phone line, feeling that familiar cocktail of guilt and anger. Growing up, that was always my role, the fixer. The one who gave up his spot, stayed home from the trip, lent out his stuff. My sister was the baby, the golden child. If she cried, I was told to hand over whatever I had. But now, standing in my kitchen, looking around at the house I fought tooth and nail to buy, I felt something else rising under the anger: resolve. 2 days later, I got proof that this wasn't just talk. I came home from the grocery store and saw a car parked out front. A man in a blazer was standing on the sidewalk, taking photos of my house. I walked right up to him. "Can I help you?" He smiled politely. "Oh, you must be Evan. I'm Tom. Your parents asked me to do a quick exterior evaluation for a potential listing." I froze. "A listing?" "Yes. They said you were thinking of selling and wanted to move quickly. You have a beautiful property, should get a lot of offers." I could feel my pulse in my neck. "You need to leave. Now. And don't come back unless I call you personally." He looked startled. Of course. Sorry, I must have misunderstood." "No," I said quietly, watching him walk back to his car. "You didn't misunderstand. They did." When he drove off, I just stood there on the porch, staring at my front door. My parents had crossed a line. It wasn't just pressure anymore. They were making moves behind my back. I called my dad immediately. Why was there a realtor taking pictures of my house? I demanded. My dad didn't even sound guilty. "Oh good, he found the place." I told him to swing by when he had a minute. Without asking me. "You weren't answering our calls," he said, like that excused it. "We figured you needed a little push." A little push. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "If you ever send someone to my property again, I'll call the police. Do you understand me?" There was a long pause. "Evan," my dad said finally, his voice low, "don't do something you'll regret. Family comes first. We're just trying to help your sister." "Funny," I said. "It doesn't feel like you're helping anyone except her." I hung up before he could answer. That night, I barely slept. I kept pacing, walking from room to room, thinking about everything I'd given up over the years, everything I'd done to keep the peace. This house was the first thing I'd ever truly done for myself, and they were trying to take it away. By morning, the decision was made. I was done playing nice. Done being the quiet one who let everyone walk all over him. If they wanted a war over this house, they were going to get one, but on my terms. I started making phone calls. Not to the family, not yet. To a lawyer. To the bank. To a friend who worked in real estate law. I wasn't just going to protect my house. I was going to make sure they couldn't pull anything like this ever again. And as I printed out the documents later that week, reading over the words that would make it official, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control. But then, just when I thought I was one step ahead, my sister did something that made my blood run cold. Something that took this entire situation from manipulative to dangerous, and made me realize I had to act fast before things got worse. The thing that pushed me over the edge happened the following week. I came home from work to find my mailbox stuffed with a thick envelope, not junk mail, but an official-looking letter from the county assessor's office. Inside was a form requesting authorization to initiate property valuation for sale. I didn't request anything. My stomach dropped. At the bottom of the form was a signature, my signature. Except it wasn't. My sister had forged my name. I stood there in my kitchen, envelope in hand, shaking with a mix of rage and disbelief. She didn't even try to hide it. She'd literally taken one of the forms from when I closed on the house 2 years ago, traced the signature, and sent it in. I called her right away. "Hey," she said, sounding way too cheerful for someone who had just committed fraud. "Cut the act," I said coldly. "Did you forge my signature?" There was a pause, then an annoyed sigh. "Oh my gosh, Evan, you're being dramatic. It was just paperwork. We were trying to speed up the process before the market drops." Mom and Dad know," she said defensively. "They said it was fine. You were dragging your feet, and I can't be homeless when the baby comes." I actually laughed, a hollow, stunned laugh. "You just committed a crime, and your defense is the market might drop? Do you realize how insane that is?" "You're overreacting," she said, her tone snapping from fake sweet to annoyed. "You should be thanking me for helping you do what's right. This way we can all move on faster." That was the last straw. Move on faster. I said, my voice low. "You have no idea what's coming next. Don't call me. Don't text me. And don't set foot on my property again." I hung up, shaking, not with fear this time, but with something sharper. The next morning, I met with my lawyer. We drafted a cease and desist letter, explicitly stating that no one was authorized to act on my behalf regarding the sale or transfer of my property. We filed it with the county and attached copies of my real signature for verification. Then I had my lawyer prepare a restraining order, not just against my sister, but also a no trespass notice that legally barred anyone in my family from contacting realtors or stepping foot on my property without my permission. It wasn't cheap, but when the sheriff's deputy served those papers at my parents' house, I got a text from my cousin 5 minutes later that said simply, "Bro, what did you do? Your mom looks like she saw a ghost." That weekend, I invited a few close friends over and celebrated by signing the last set of papers that transferred my house into a revocable living trust, with me as the sole trustee. From that moment on, my house wasn't technically owned by me, but by the trust. That meant if anyone tried to sue me, pressure me, or force a sale, they'd be fighting a legal entity with its own protections. But I wasn't done. A month later, my sister sent out invitations for her baby shower. I wasn't invited. My mom texted me the next day. "We thought it would be better if you didn't come, just to keep the peace." That text was the final green light for me to go through with the plan I'd been quietly setting up since the night of my birthday dinner. See, during those late nights after work, while my family thought I was stewing in my house, I'd been meeting with a financial advisor. I had more savings than they thought, not millions, but enough. Enough to make a point. 2 weeks before the shower, I had a professional event planner rent out the nicest hall in town on the same date and time as my sister's shower. Then I mailed out invitations to the entire extended family, plus a few of her friends, cousins, and even some of her coworkers, inviting them to Evan's housewarming and mortgage-free celebration. When the day came, my sister apparently still went ahead with her shower. According to my cousin, who texted me updates the entire time, barely half the guests showed up. The rest came to my event. At mine, I gave a short speech. Calm, collected. "Thanks for coming," I said, standing in front of a big display showing my framed deed and a photo of my house. As most of you know, there was a little drama about my home recently. Tonight, I just wanted to make something clear. This house isn't going anywhere. It's fully paid off, legally protected, and can't be touched by anyone but me. And I want you all to know that I will never again be pressured, guilt-tripped, or manipulated into giving up the life I built for myself. The room erupted in applause. And it wasn't just pity claps. Several relatives came up to me after, quietly saying they admired me for standing my ground, that they wished they'd done the same in their own families. Meanwhile, my sister texted me mid-party. "You are so selfish. Half my guests left early. Do you know how embarrassing that was?" I didn't reply. A few weeks later, word got around that she and Matt had to move in with his parents temporarily because they couldn't make rent. I didn't gloat, didn't say "I told you so," but I also didn't offer a dime. The last time I saw them, months later at Thanksgiving, she wouldn't look me in the eye. My mom tried to act like everything was normal, but I noticed she didn't bring up my house, money, or my responsibilities once. Funny how quickly people stop talking about what you owe them once you make it clear you won't be pushed around anymore. As we were leaving that night, my dad walked me to the door. For the first time in my life, he looked respectful. "You really made your point this time," he said quietly. "Yeah," I said, slipping on my coat. "And I'll make it again if I have to." I drove home, pulled into my driveway, and just sat there for a moment, staring at the house. My house. For the first time in months, it didn't feel like a battleground. It felt like mine again. And the best part? I didn't just win the fight. I made sure there wouldn't be another one. So that's how I shut down my family's little plan and made sure my house stayed mine forever. Honestly, I still can't believe they thought I'd just roll over and sell it because they asked. What do you think? Was I too harsh by legally shutting them out? Or was this the only way to finally make them respect my boundaries? Would you have gone this far if it were your family? Hey Reddit, my name's Jake. I'm 32, financially stable, and, up until recently, living a pretty peaceful life. That was before my parents decided I was their personal retirement plan. Let me paint a picture of my family. My mom is the queen of entitlement. She truly believes that giving birth to me was the greatest investment of her life, and that one day, I'd be cashing out in her favor. My dad? He's just along for the ride. If my mom says something, he nods and agrees. His decision-making process consists of 3 steps. Ask my mom, do what she says, then pretend it was his idea. And then there's Emily, my older sister, the golden child. If favoritism had a face, it would be hers, probably on a gold-framed portrait above my parents' fireplace. She never had to work for anything. If she wanted something, it magically appeared. Meanwhile, I was out here earning my own money at 16 while my parents made excuses about why they couldn't help me with anything. So a few months ago, I get a call from my mom. That alone was suspicious because she never calls unless she wants something. I pick up, and the first thing she says is, "How's my favorite son?" Right away, I know something's up. I say, "I'm your only son." She laughs like I just said the funniest thing in the world and goes, "That's why we need to have a little talk. Your father and I are getting older, and we're thinking it's time to retire. Settle down, enjoy life a little." I tell her that's great. Good for them. Then she drops the bomb. She says, "We were thinking you could help us out financially." At first, I think I misheard her. I ask her to repeat it, and she says it again, this time with a tone like it's the most natural thing in the world. I tell her, "You're both 55. My dad jumps in and says they've worked hard their whole lives, and now it's my turn to take care of them. He says, family takes care of each other." That line, that magic phrase. The same family that forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. I ask if they've talked to Emily about this. The second I mention her name, my mom gets defensive. She says Emily has her own life to live, that she's busy, and that unlike me, she has responsibilities. I blink a few times, because I must be in some alternate reality. Emily, who has never worked a real job, has responsibilities. Meanwhile, I run my own business, pay my own bills, and somehow I have extra money? I take a deep breath and tell them no. Silence. Then my mom's voice goes sharp. "Excuse me." I say it again. "No, I'm not paying for their retirement. They had decades to save money, but instead, they spent it all on Emily, covering for her bad decisions. That's not my problem." And that's when my mom loses it. She starts yelling about how ungrateful I am, how they sacrificed so much for me, how I wouldn't be where I am without them. My dad chimes in, saying, "We gave you everything." I ask them to name one sacrifice. Just one. My mom sputters, then finally screams, "Emily would never abandon us like this." And that's when I start laughing, because I know something they don't. Emily doesn't care about them. She won't help them. She never has, and she never will. I hang up. A few months pass. Life is good. I think the situation is over. Then one night, there's a knock at my door. I open it, and there they are. My parents. Suitcases in hand. Their entitled smiles fade when they see my face. My mom clears her throat. "We need to talk." I cross my arms. "No, we really don't." But they're already stepping forward, like they expect me to let them in. And that's when I realize they don't just want money. They want to move in. I don't step aside. I don't invite them in. Instead, I stand there, arms crossed, staring at the two people who used to be my parents before they decided I was their personal ATM. My mom is the first to break the awkward silence. She puts on that fake sweet voice she always uses when she wants something. "We were in the neighborhood," she says, as if she just happened to be dragging 2 giant suitcases down my street. My dad nods along, clearly going with the script they prepared in the car. And, well, we figured we'd stop by for a little visit. I glance at the suitcases again. "You usually bring a full wardrobe for your little visits?" My mom's smile twitches. "That's actually what we need to talk about." I already know where this is going, but I let her continue. She sighs dramatically, like she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. "Your father and we've hit some financial difficulties. We had some unexpected expenses, and I cut her off. Emily needed money again, didn't she?" Their silence is all the answer I need. I laugh, shaking my head. It's honestly incredible. They spent their whole lives bending over backwards for my sister, covering her messes, paying her bills, making excuse after excuse for her. And now, after all that, here they are. Broke. Homeless. Standing on my doorstep, expecting me to clean up their mess. My dad clears his throat, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Look, son, let's not make this about Emily. This is about family. We need a place to stay for a little while. Just until we get back on our feet." I raise an eyebrow. Define a little while. My mom waves a hand. "Oh, a few months. Maybe a year." I almost choke. "A year?" I step back, still blocking the doorway. "No," my mom's face hardens. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean exactly what I said. No. They made their choices. They spent their money. They refused to hold Emily accountable, and now that it's come back to bite them, they want to dump the consequences on me. Not happening." My mom's fake patience shatters. Her voice goes shrill. So you're just going to abandon us? Your own parents. I stare at her. Like how you abandoned me every time Emily needed something? That one lands. My mom's mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. My dad tries a different approach. He sighs heavily, shaking his head like he's disappointed in me. We raised you better than this. I let out a short laugh. No, you didn't. And that's when the explosion happens. My mom screams. Full volume, banshee-level screeching. You ungrateful little, after everything we did for you. We fed you, we clothed you, She's so loud that a porch light flicks on across the street. A neighbor peeks out their window. And that's when I get an idea. A truly evil idea. I take a step back, not to let them in, but to reach for something. My phone. I unlock it, tap the screen a few times, and hold it up. Keep going, I say. This is great footage. My mom freezes mid-rant. My dad stiffens. I smile. I think I'll send this to Emily. Let's see what she thinks about your little visit. And that's when everything changes. For the first time since they showed up, my parents actually look nervous. My mom's eyes dart between me and my phone. You wouldn't. I smirk. Why not? You said Emily would never abandon you. I'm sure she'd love to hear about this. Maybe she'll even invite you to stay with her. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. My dad shifts uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. My mom's jaw clenches so tight I think she might break a tooth. And that's when I realize they already tried. Emily must have turned them down. The golden child. Their perfect daughter. The one they spent their entire lives worshipping. She must have slammed the door in their faces, left them out in the cold, and suddenly, I became Plan B. My smirk widens. Oh my God. She did turn you away, didn't she? My mom's face goes red. That's none of your business. I laugh. I actually double over laughing, because this is just too good. So let me get this straight. You spent decades bending over backwards for Emily, treating her like a queen, cleaning up every single mess she made. You ignored me, made it clear I was the afterthought. And now, the second you need actual help, she doesn't even pick up the phone. My mom glares at me, nostrils flaring. You don't understand. I wipe a fake tear from my eye. No, I understand perfectly. You bet everything on the wrong horse. And now you want me to fix it. I gesture to the sidewalk. Get off my porch. My dad finally speaks up, his voice desperate. We have nowhere else to go. I shrug. Not my problem. My mom lets out a shaky breath, like she's trying to hold back another outburst. Then she tries one last card. The guilt trip. Her voice softens. Honey, we're your parents. We're family. I tilt my head. Funny how you only remember that when you need something. Her expression twists into something ugly. You'll regret this. One day, you'll be old too, and no one will take care of you. I smile. I'm planning ahead. Unlike you. My mom looks like she's about to throw another fit, but my dad puts a hand on her arm. He's given up. He knows there's no winning this. They turn, dragging their suitcases behind them. And as they disappear into the night, I can't help but wonder, where will they go now? Because Emily sure as hell won't open her door for them. But me? I'm going to sleep like a baby. I watch them stumble off my porch, dragging their heavy suitcases behind them like the weight of every bad decision they've ever made. The streetlight casts long shadows as they shuffle toward the sidewalk, my mom muttering angrily under her breath while my dad trudges silently beside her. I should go inside. I should close the door and be done with it. But I don't. I stand there, arms crossed, watching them struggle because, for the first time in my life, they are the ones who have to deal with the consequences of their own actions. And damn, it feels good. My mom suddenly stops in her tracks. She whirls around, face twisted in rage. You owe us. We gave you everything. I lean against the doorframe, unfazed. Everything? You gave everything to Emily. I just got whatever crumbs were left over. She scoffs. That's not true. I laugh. A bitter, humorless laugh. Oh, really? Let's do a little math, shall we? I hold up a finger. How much did you pay for Emily's college? Silence. I hold up a second finger. How much did you give Emily when she couldn't afford rent because she blew all her money on some business venture that flopped in 2 months? Still nothing. I hold up a third. How many times did you bail her out when she maxed out her credit cards? When she crashed her car? When she called you crying because she didn't know where all her money went? My mom's face is getting redder and redder. I hold up a fourth finger. And now tell me, exactly how much did you give me when I asked for help with my own college tuition? Oh wait, I remember. You told me to figure it out myself because Emily needed it more. My mom glares at me, seething, but she doesn't deny it. She can't deny it. Because it's the truth. My dad shifts uncomfortably, probably wishing he could melt into the pavement. I shake my head, disgusted. You chose her. Every time. And now she doesn't even pick up the damn phone when you need help? That's not my fault. That's yours. My mom is shaking with fury. We did what was best for our family. I narrow my eyes. No. You did what was best for Emily. She lets out a strangled sound, like she's about to explode again. But my dad suddenly grabs her arm and mutters something too low for me to hear. He's done. He just wants to leave. She yanks her arm away, but after a moment, she turns and storms off, dragging her suitcase like it personally insulted her. My dad follows, shoulders slumped, and soon enough, they disappear around the corner. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. For the first time in years, I feel free. No more guilt. No more expectations. No more being the backup plan. I step back inside and lock the door. But just as I turn away, my phone buzzes in my hand. A text. From Emily. And when I open it, my stomach drops. Mom just called me. She's furious. She says you humiliated them and left them on the street. But don't worry, I have an idea. An idea? I stare at the message, a strange mix of amusement and dread creeping in. What is she up to now? I stare at Emily's text, my stomach twisting. An idea? That's never good. Emily's ideas usually mean trouble for everyone but her. Before I can even type a response, my phone buzzes again. Call me. We need to talk. I roll my eyes. Of course. Because why send a text when she can talk over me instead? Still, I can't help but be curious. I sigh, press call, and put the phone to my ear. She picks up immediately. Wow. So, you actually kicked Mom and Dad out? That's kinda brutal, don't you think? I scoff. Oh, don't start. They showed up at my door demanding I take care of them. What was I supposed to do? Emily sighs dramatically, like she's already exhausted by this conversation. I don't know. Maybe not throw our parents onto the street? That seems like a solid option. My grip tightens around the phone. Funny. You weren't so concerned when you turned them away. Silence. I smirk. Yeah, they didn't tell me, but I figured it out. You were their first choice, weren't you? They went crawling to you first, and you shut the door in their faces. And now you're mad that I did the same thing. Emily lets out a little laugh, but there's an edge to it. Oh, come on. You know how it is. I have things going on. A social life. A career. Responsibilities. I can't just drop everything to babysit two boomers who can't handle their money. I raise an eyebrow. And I can. There's a pause, then she sighs like I'm being unreasonable. I mean, yeah? You've always been the responsible one. The one who's, like, good at dealing with this kind of stuff. You're independent. Smart. You actually plan ahead. You can handle this. I nearly laugh out loud. So let me get this straight. You got to be the reckless, spoiled one for your entire life, and now that our parents need help, you just assume I should deal with it because I was forced to be the responsible one. Emily hums thoughtfully. I mean, yeah, that sounds about right. I shake my head, stunned. Wow. You really don't even try to hide it, do you? She giggles. Why would I? It's just the natural order of things. I mean, come on, they love me. Always have. You know that. They were never gonna ask me to do the hard stuff. That's what you're for. My jaw clenches. Then why are you even calling me? She clicks her tongue. Because you're being ridiculous. Look, I get it. You're mad. You want to make a point. But be honest, don't you feel even a little bad? Leaving them out there like that? They're old. They're stressed. They're family. And let's be real, you can totally afford to let them stay for a while. Your place is way bigger than mine. You have the space. I let out a slow breath. You know what's funny? If they had just asked me for help, if they had come to me like normal human beings instead of demanding and guilt-tripping, I might have actually considered it. But they didn't. And now here you are, acting like I'm some kind of villain for refusing to clean up your mess. Emily sighs like I'm a child who just doesn't get it. Look, I know they can be a bit much, but they are our parents. And one day, you're gonna regret treating them like this. I shake my head. No, they're going to regret treating me like this. Emily is quiet for a moment. Then she lets out a soft, amused chuckle. You're really not gonna budge on this, huh? I said, not even a little. She responded, wow, cold. I told her, you would know. She snickers. Okay, fine. Have it your way. But don't say I didn't warn you. Warn me. I frown. Warn me about what? but she's already hung up. I stare at my phone, a strange sense of unease creeping in. Because if I know Emily, she's not the type to just let things go. And something tells me she's about to make this way worse. The uneasy feeling settles in my stomach like a rock. I know Emily too well. That wasn't a conversation, it was a warning. A threat wrapped in a sugar-coated giggle. And the worst part? I don't even have to wait long to find out what she meant. 2 days later, my doorbell rings. I sigh, already exhausted before I even get up from the couch. I don't have to look. I know who it is. I pull open the door, and there they are. My parents. Again. But this time, they're not just standing there like lost, confused victims. No. This time, they look confident. Smug, even. Like they know something I don't. I cross my arms. No. Whatever you're about to say, the answer is no. My mom lets out a dramatic sigh, clutching her chest like I've just shot her. Do you hear how you speak to us? To your own parents? After everything we've done for you. I don't take the bait. Cut to the chase. Why are you here? My dad steps forward, arms crossed. We talked to Emily. Of course they did. And I deadpan. And she told us everything. My mom says, shaking her head in disappointment. How you've been selfish. How you've always resented us. How you turned your back on family just because you finally got a little money in your pocket. I snort. Selfish? That's rich, coming from the two people who demanded I fund their retirement while treating me like a second-class citizen compared to Emily. My dad's jaw tightens. This isn't about Emily, isn't it? I cut him off. Because you didn't demand she take care of you. You didn't scream at her about family obligations. She told you no, and you just accepted it. But when I say no, suddenly I'm the worst child in the world. My mother shakes her head. She has a different life, sweetie. You know that. She's not as stable as you. I laugh, actually laugh. Oh, you mean because I'm responsible? Because I didn't party away my 20s or hop from job to job with no plan. That's my reward? Getting saddled with your problems while she gets to live stress-free. My dad huffs. You're being dramatic. Oh, I'm being dramatic? I shake my head, biting back the urge to slam the door in their faces. Let me guess. Emily told you that I owe you. That I'm cruel. That I'm ruining our family, right? My mom nods furiously, like I've just proven her point. Yes, exactly. She said she was horrified at how you treated us. She said you're turning into a bitter, greedy person, and you don't even see it. I smile, slow and cold. Right? And let me guess. She also couldn't take you in herself, because she's just not in the right place right now. But she really wishes she could help. My parents glance at each other, clearly not expecting me to nail it so perfectly. I let out a sharp laugh. Wow, she really played you like a damn fiddle, huh? My dad frowns. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that Emily manipulated you exactly the way she always does. She threw just enough fake sympathy your way to make you think she cares, all while making sure the responsibility still falls entirely on me. My mother crosses her arms, but I see the hesitation in her eyes. That's not true. Oh, really? So tell me, after she told you how awful I was, what exactly did she offer to do for you? Silence. I nod. Yeah, that's what I thought. My dad clears his throat, trying to regain control. That doesn't change the fact that you owe us. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. And now that we need your help, you want to abandon us. I exhale slowly, clenching my fists. Okay, let's go down that road. Yes, you raised me. You did the bare minimum a parent should do. But you also made it very clear my entire life that Emily was your priority. You gave her the best of everything while I got the scraps. You excused everything she did, no matter how selfish or irresponsible. And now you're shocked that I don't feel the same loyalty to you that she pretends to. My mother scoffs. That's not fair. It's completely fair. I snap. You taught me, my entire life, that I wasn't your favorite. That my needs came second. That I was less important than Emily. And now you're demanding I take responsibility for you, while she gets to live guilt-free. Absolutely not. You made your bed. Now lie in it. Their faces darken. I've hit a nerve. My dad clenches his jaw. You'll regret this. I smile, sharp and cold. No, you will. I slam the door in their faces. They pound on it, screaming at me, but I don't care. I walk away, heart pounding, adrenaline surging. But then, the pounding stops. Silence. For a split second, I think they've finally given up. That maybe, just maybe, they've realized I'm serious. But then bang. I whirl around just in time to see the door shutter in its frame. They're trying to force their way in. Rage boils up inside me. I march back to the door, rip it open, and stare them down. Are you insane? I snap. You're really about to break my door because I won't let you mooch off me? My mother's eyes are wild, desperate. We have nowhere else to go. What kind of child abandons their parents like this? I hold up my phone. The kind who will call the cops if you don't leave in the next 5 seconds. My father sneers. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I press the emergency dial. Say one more word and we'll find out. The color drains from their faces. For all their entitlement, they know I'm not bluffing. My mom glares at me, tears pooling in her eyes. You're a monster. I shrug. And you're trespassing. Get lost. They stand there, fuming, but after a few tense seconds, they finally turn and stomp off. My mother sobs dramatically, my father mutters under his breath, and I don't even care anymore. I slam the door shut. This time for good. And just like that, it's over. No more guilt. No more manipulation. No more being treated like a backup plan while Emily skates by, free and clear. They made their choice years ago. And now, I've made mine. After that day, I stopped answering their calls. No texts, no voicemails. Just silence. Weeks passed, and I heard nothing from them. I'd like to say it was a relief, but part of me still felt that familiar pang of guilt, even though I knew deep down I'd made the right choice. Eventually, Emily tried to call me, but I didn't pick up. The same old manipulative spiel, you're breaking mom and dad's hearts, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I didn't want to keep playing this game. I never heard from my parents again. And you know what? I'm okay with that. My name's Tyler. I'm 28 years old, and if you had asked me a year ago whether I thought my own family could abandon me when I needed them the most, I would have laughed. We weren't picture perfect, but I figured we had at least the bare minimum of loyalty. Turns out, I was wrong. The night everything started unraveling, I was lying on a cold hospital bed with bruises running down my side, stitches tugging at my forehead, and a dull ache that seemed to live in my bones. I had just been in a car accident, a mess of screeching tires, twisted metal, and flashing red lights that ended with me spending 3 nights in the hospital. Alone. Completely alone. I remember staring at the door the first night, waiting for it to open. Waiting for mom to come in with that worried expression she always wore when I was sick as a kid, or maybe dad to awkwardly hand me a sports drink and mutter something about getting better soon. I even thought maybe my brother, Josh, would at least check on me, even though we never got along well. But the door never opened. The nurses came, the doctors came, but my family didn't. Each hour that ticked by only made that silence louder. When I finally reached for my phone, I found nothing but a notification that made my stomach sink. Josh had posted a photo online. A grinning selfie with some of his friends, captioned, "Finally some peace without him." I wish I could say I was shocked, but the truth is, Josh has always been like that. He's 26, the golden child in my parents' eyes, and the kind of guy who could trip over his own feet and still get praised for trying. Ever since we were kids, he had a way of making me the problem. If he broke something, somehow I must have left it out. If he failed a class, it was because I distracted him. And my parents, especially mom, always gave him the benefit of the doubt. I learned early on that in my family, silence was safer than protest. Still, seeing that post while I lay in a hospital bed with my body aching and my mind spinning, it cut deeper than I expected. The next morning, I tried calling mom. Straight to voicemail. Dad didn't answer either. I told myself maybe they were busy. Maybe Josh hadn't even told them I was hurt. But when the nurse came in and asked if my family would be visiting that day, and I had to choke out a no, I don't think so, I felt something inside me shift. That gnawing question, why am I not enough for them to care, started carving itself deeper into me. By the time I was discharged, moving like a man twice my age and wrapped in bandages, I had stopped waiting for their call. I got myself an Uber, hobbled up my apartment stairs, and collapsed on my couch. My phone buzzed once that night, not from mom or dad, but from a friend who had heard about the accident through someone else. Meanwhile, Josh kept posting. A group dinner, drinks with the fam, a comment from mom under one of his photos. So proud of you, sweetheart. I scrolled through it all with a hollow pit in my stomach, trying to ignore the way my chest tightened. A week later, I woke up in the middle of the night, sore and stiff, to the sound of my phone vibrating nonstop on the nightstand. 53 missed calls. My eyes blurred as I scrolled, every single one from mom and dad. At the top of my notifications sat a single message: "Your brother's in trouble. We need you now." For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the screen, my thumb hovering. The irony of it hit me so hard I laughed, even though the movement sent pain shooting through my ribs. They needed me now? After I had spent 3 nights in the hospital without a single visit, after my own brother mocked me publicly for being gone, and now, suddenly, I was supposed to be the solution. That was the moment when something inside me began to harden. I didn't respond, not yet. I wanted to know what exactly had happened and why, of all people, they were calling me. And most of all, I wanted to see just how far they were willing to go when the tables turned. I didn't answer their calls that night. I just let the phone buzz and buzz until the battery finally gave out, and in the silence afterward, I lay there staring at the ceiling. A part of me felt guilty, because that's what I'd been conditioned to feel my whole life whenever I didn't immediately bend to their will. But another part of me felt something different, a spark of control. For once, they needed me, and I was the one choosing to stay silent. The next morning, I finally charged my phone and scrolled through the flood of messages. From Mom: "Tyler, this is serious. Pick up." From Dad: "Don't be selfish, your brother needs you." And then, the one that made my stomach twist: "Josh made a mistake, but he's still your brother. Family means helping each other. Don't make this about you." I read that line over and over again until the words blurred. Don't make this about you. Like the 3 nights I spent alone in a hospital bed were some minor inconvenience, easily brushed aside. Like my pain, my isolation, my humiliation at seeing Josh's cruel post didn't matter compared to whatever mess he had landed himself in. By noon, Mom finally left me a voicemail. Her voice was sharp, panicked, but underneath it all was that same tone I knew too well: entitlement. "Tyler, enough is enough. Your brother got into some trouble with his job, and we need your help. You've always been the responsible one, and he can't fix this on his own. We're coming over if you don't answer." That was the first time in days that I actually sat up straight. My body screamed in protest, but my mind was racing. They hadn't cared enough to come see me when I was hooked up to IVs and monitors, but now they were ready to drive across town because Josh couldn't handle his own problems. I almost wanted to let them. I wanted to see their faces when they realized I wasn't going to play the role they had written for me anymore. Sure enough, around 3 p.m., there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, leaning heavily against the frame, Mom pushed past me without so much as a glance at the bandages peeking out from under my shirt. Dad followed, looking uncomfortable but silent, as always. "Tyler, this is ridiculous," Mom started, dropping her purse on my counter like she owned the place. "Josh is in real danger of losing his job. He made some mistakes with paperwork, some financial things, and they're talking about pressing charges if he can't get it sorted. You know about this stuff. You're organized, you're careful. You can help him." I stared at her, still half in disbelief at how casually she dismissed everything I had been through. "You didn't even visit me," I finally said, my voice low but sharp. "I was in the hospital for 3 nights, and you didn't even come once." For the first time, Mom hesitated. Then she waved a hand, as if I'd brought up something trivial. "We didn't want to overwhelm you. And besides, Josh needed us. He was going through a rough time, and you're stronger. You don't need hand-holding." Stronger. That was always the excuse. I was the one who didn't need help, the one who could handle being ignored because I could manage. They never realized that being strong all the time doesn't mean you don't need someone to care. Dad finally cleared his throat. "Son, your mother's right. We know it wasn't easy, but you're resilient. Josh, he's not. He needs support. He's your brother. You'll regret it if you don't step up now." I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound that made both of them look at me like I'd lost it. "So let me get this straight. I almost died in a car accident. You couldn't bother to show up. But because Josh messed up at work, I'm supposed to drop everything and save him." Mom's expression hardened instantly. "Don't twist this, Tyler. You're making it sound worse than it was. You're fine now, aren't you? Walking, talking. But Josh's whole future is on the line. This isn't about fairness, it's about family. You don't turn your back on family." That word again. Family. They always threw it around like it was a leash, something to yank whenever they wanted me to fall in line. I crossed my arms, ignoring the twinge of pain that shot through my side. Funny how family only seems to matter when Josh needs something. When I needed you, you were nowhere. But now, suddenly, it's my duty? Mom's jaw clenched. "Tyler, stop being dramatic. You've always had this attitude, like the world owes you something just because you work hard. Life isn't fair, and if you don't help, you'll be the reason your brother's life falls apart. That was it, the shift. They weren't just asking anymore. They were blaming, manipulating, making me out to be the villain if I didn't sacrifice myself again for the golden child. I stood there in my own apartment, bandaged and sore, with my parents staring at me like I was the unreasonable one. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel powerless. I felt the edges of something sharper forming, a line I knew I was ready to draw. But the question was, how far would they go to push me back into my old role? Mom's words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, but what struck me most wasn't her tone. It was her absolute certainty. She truly believed I was being selfish, that my pain was just an inconvenience compared to Josh's crisis. I should have expected it. This was the pattern of my life. Still, something inside me wanted to believe there was a limit, a point where even they would realize they'd gone too far. That hope didn't last long. 2 days after that confrontation in my apartment, I woke up to my phone buzzing again. This time it wasn't frantic calls, it was notifications. Dozens of them. My stomach twisted as I opened social media and saw Josh's newest post. It was a photo of me. Not a recent one, but from months ago. A family barbecue where I was laughing with a plate of food in my hand, totally unaware of the camera. The caption was a knife to the gut. Some people only care about themselves. Even family. When I needed help the most, he turned his back. Guess we know who the real problem has always been. My hands went cold as I scrolled through the comments. Friends, cousins, even family acquaintances I barely spoke to had chimed in. That's awful, Josh. I can't believe he'd do that to you. You deserve better. I realized instantly what had happened. He must have told everyone I refused to help him, spinning the story to make himself the victim. And of course, my parents hadn't corrected him. They probably encouraged it. Why not? Blaming me was easier than facing the truth about their favorite son. That morning, I ignored every call and message. I sat in silence, my chest tight, while my reputation within the family circle crumbled piece by piece. It wasn't just an insult, it was a betrayal. They hadn't just abandoned me when I was vulnerable. Now, they were actively smearing me, painting me as the villain so no one would question why I wasn't swooping in to fix Josh's mess. Later that evening, there was another knock at my door. I considered ignoring it, but something told me I needed to face them. When I opened the door, Mom and Dad stood there again, but this time, their expressions weren't pleading. They were expectant, almost smug. Mom got straight to the point. So, Josh told everyone what's going on. And frankly, they agree, you're being unreasonable. This is bigger than your pride, Tyler. If you won't help for the sake of your brother, then at least do it for the family's reputation. People are starting to talk, and we can't have that. I stared at her, stunned. You let him post that about me? You let him drag me through the mud online when I didn't even do anything wrong. Her face didn't even flicker with guilt. It's not about right or wrong. It's about doing what's necessary. And if a little pressure makes you do the right thing, then so be it. Dad finally spoke, his voice calm but cutting. Son, sometimes we all have to take hits for the greater good. Josh has always struggled, and people understand that. But you're supposed to be the responsible one. If you keep resisting, you'll just prove everyone right about you. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't just disappointment anymore. It was betrayal so raw it left me trembling. They weren't just dismissing my pain. They were sacrificing me deliberately, throwing me under the bus to protect Josh. To protect their golden boy. I looked from one to the other, my vision blurring, and for the first time in years, I didn't bother holding back. Do you even hear yourselves? You want me to clean up his mess, let him trash my name, and call it family loyalty? You didn't care when I was lying in a hospital bed, but now that people are talking, suddenly I matter, because I can save you from embarrassment. You don't want a son, you want a scapegoat. For a second, the apartment was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Mom's eyes narrowed, and she said the words that seared themselves into my memory. If you walk away now, Tyler, don't expect to be welcomed back. You'll regret choosing pride over family. And just like that, the last fragile thread between us snapped. The silence after my mom's ultimatum wasn't just quiet, it was deafening. I stood there in my own apartment, bandaged and aching, with both of them glaring at me like I was some disobedient child. When I didn't answer, they left without another word, slamming the door behind them so hard the frame rattled. And just like that, I was alone again. For the next few days, I barely moved from the couch. My ribs throbbed if I breathed too deeply, and the stitches on my forehead itched under the bandage. I tried distracting myself with TV, with books, even with work emails I was too sore to properly focus on. But the weight of everything pressed down harder than my injuries. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced myself for another wave of notifications, more messages, more guilt-tripping, more subtle reminders that in their eyes, I wasn't a son. I was a tool. The worst part wasn't their betrayal. It was how thoroughly I believed it. I replayed their words over and over. Don't make this about you. You're stronger. You'll regret it. They rang in my head at night, whispering that maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I really was the problem, the one too stubborn to sacrifice for the family. That guilt chewed at me until my chest ached in ways the doctors hadn't warned me about. I stopped answering calls altogether. Friends texted to check in, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. How could I admit that my family, my own parents, had abandoned me in the hospital, then turned around and painted me as the villain for not saving my brother? What would that make me if I let people see how little I mattered to the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally? Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my body heavy with exhaustion but my mind racing. Every memory of being overlooked, every moment Josh was praised for doing the bare minimum while my achievements were dismissed, came back in vivid detail. The time I got into college on a scholarship and Mom barely looked up from her phone, but Josh passed one summer class, and they threw a dinner for him. The Christmas when I worked extra shifts to buy everyone gifts, and Josh got all the thanks because he organized the family photos. Even as kids, when I won a soccer tournament and Dad told me not to brag because Josh was having a rough season. It all connected now. My accident was just the final proof that nothing I did, nothing I suffered, would ever outweigh Josh's needs. For a while, I thought about giving in. I thought about calling them, apologizing just to stop the relentless pressure. I imagined sitting down with Josh, doing his paperwork, fixing whatever mess he'd made, just so the storm would pass. But every time I pictured it, I felt something twist inside me. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was the certainty that if I gave in this time, I'd never stop. I would be their scapegoat forever. That realization broke me in a different way. I didn't eat much. I barely spoke. I moved like a ghost through my own life, sore and drained and tired of caring more than anyone ever cared for me. It felt like rock bottom, not just physically, but emotionally. I had nothing left to give and no one left to lean on. But in that emptiness, something small began to grow. It started as a whisper, a thought I pushed away at first. What if I stopped playing their game? What if I stopped letting them write the narrative, stopped letting them decide I was the villain? The more I sat with that thought, the clearer it became. I couldn't undo the years of favoritism. I couldn't erase the hospital nights or the smear campaign Josh had started. But maybe, just maybe, I could take back control. Not by yelling, not by begging, but by quietly stepping out of their reach. I didn't have a plan yet, not really. But the first step was simple. Stop trying to win their approval. Stop waiting for them to show up, to care, to be the family I wanted. If they had already cast me as the villain, then maybe it was time to stop proving them wrong and start writing my own story. Still, deep down, I knew one thing for certain. They weren't done. My silence would only provoke them more. And the next move they made would show me just how far they were willing to go to keep me under control. The weeks that followed were strange. At first, they felt hollow, like I was walking through the ruins of something I hadn't even realized had burned down. But slowly, almost without meaning to, I started piecing myself back together. I threw myself into work. It wasn't glamorous. I'm in project management at a mid-sized tech firm. But for the first time in months, I found myself focusing fully. Maybe it was the distraction I needed, or maybe it was because my boss actually noticed when I put in effort, something my family had never done. When I logged late hours, when I stayed on top of deadlines, when I solved messy problems no one else wanted to touch, people actually appreciated it. It wasn't long before that appreciation turned into something more. One Monday morning, my boss called me into her office. I braced for criticism. It's what I'd grown used to. Instead, she said, "Tyler, I don't know how you've been holding it together with everything you've been through, but the team has been raving about your leadership. We're promoting you to senior project lead." I sat there stunned, blinking at her across the desk. Senior project lead meant more pay, more responsibility, and, most importantly, more respect. I mumbled a thank you, and she smiled like it was obvious. You've earned it. Those 3 words replayed in my head the entire subway ride home. You've earned it. Not, you owe us, or, you're stronger, so you don't need help. Just recognition that I had worked hard, and it mattered. It was such a foreign feeling that it almost hurt, but in the best way possible. With the raise, I was able to finally breathe financially. I upgraded my apartment, moved into a place with sunlight pouring through the windows in the morning, and bought furniture that wasn't secondhand or patched together from friends' leftovers. For once, my living space didn't feel temporary. It felt like mine. Every little detail, from the framed photos I chose to the bookshelves I built, was a quiet declaration. I don't need them to validate me. And it wasn't just work. Freed from the constant emotional tug-of-war with my family, I found myself reaching out to people I had neglected, friends I hadn't seen in ages because I was too drained to keep up. Dinners, game nights, even just a walk in the park with a friend from college. Every small reconnection reminded me that not all relationships demanded I sacrifice myself. The contrast was sharp. At work and with friends, I was valued. At home, in the family sphere, I was disposable. That difference became the fuel I didn't know I'd been missing. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet with my family. I didn't answer calls. I didn't defend myself against Josh's posts or my parents' whispers through the grapevine. I let them think I was still licking my wounds, still too stubborn to come back. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't just recovering, I was growing stronger. One night, as I sat in my new apartment looking out over the city lights, I realized something. I had more power than I ever thought. Financial independence, a career that respected me, friends who had my back, and most importantly, the knowledge that I could survive without them. That thought was liberating, but it was also dangerous. Because if I no longer needed them, then I was free to choose how I responded the next time they came knocking. And something told me they weren't done yet. The question wasn't if they would try again, it was when. It had been nearly 2 months since the hospital and the fallout that followed. By then, I had slipped into a rhythm that felt almost alien compared to the chaos of before. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I woke up in a sunlit apartment, drank coffee from a mug I'd chosen for myself, and went to a job where people respected me. That alone felt like a kind of revenge. But I knew deep down the story with my family wasn't over. The first crack in the silence came in the form of an email from my dad. Not a call, not a text, an email, like we were strangers conducting business. His words were stiff, clipped. Tyler, things have escalated with your brother's situation. It's complicated, but he's at risk of losing more than his job. We'd like to sit down and explain everything. We need your discretion. Call us. Discretion. That word stuck with me. It wasn't just about paperwork anymore. It was legal trouble. My stomach turned as I read it again, but then something curious happened. Instead of fear, I felt calm. This wasn't my crisis. It wasn't my responsibility. And yet, the fact that they were reaching out, again, meant they were cornered. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I did what I hadn't done before. I started paying attention. I had a cousin, Mark, who I was still on good terms with. Unlike the others, he wasn't quick to swallow Josh's stories without question. Over dinner one evening, he leaned in and said, "Look, I don't know what's going on with your folks, but word is Josh messed with company funds. Like, big amounts. They're saying if he can't pay it back, he might actually face charges." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. That explained everything. The desperation, the smear campaign, the sudden talk of family reputation. They weren't just trying to save Josh's job. They were trying to keep him out of jail. I asked casually, "How do you know?" Mark shrugged. "One of my friends works at his company. It's not public yet, but it's spreading." He gave me a pointed look. "They're probably going to lean on you hard, man. Don't let them drag you down with him." His words sat heavy with me the whole night. I lay awake thinking about it, and slowly, the pieces clicked into place. My parents weren't just asking for help. They were maneuvering me into being Josh's safety net, maybe even his scapegoat. After all, I was the responsible one, the one who could handle pressure, the one who owed it to family. But here's the thing. My promotion at work hadn't just given me money. It gave me knowledge. I'd been handling contracts, financial structures, compliance reports, things I never thought I'd understand, but now could navigate with ease. The very skills that made me valuable at work were the ones my family wanted to exploit. And if Josh really had tampered with company funds, I was in a better position than anyone to understand just how deep his mess ran. Instead of shrinking away, I started digging. Quietly, carefully. I asked the right questions in casual conversations. I browsed public records, paying attention to any lawsuits or filings that had Josh's name tied to them. And the more I uncovered, the clearer the picture became. Josh wasn't just careless. He was reckless. He had been using company accounts like his own personal piggy bank, lavish dinners, weekend trips, even a down payment on a car he bragged about online. If anyone outside the company connected those dots, his career wouldn't just be over. He'd be branded for life. And yet, here was the most interesting part. The evidence wasn't locked away. Some of it was sitting in plain sight. Receipts he'd posted on social media, boasting about celebrating milestones, or photos tagged at places he couldn't possibly afford. With my training at work, I could see the trail he was leaving without even realizing it. That realization lit a spark in me. For the first time, I wasn't just defending myself against my family's manipulation. I had leverage. Real leverage. I didn't know yet what I would do with it, but the balance of power had shifted. They thought they could drag me back into the role of fixer, of scapegoat. But I had something they didn't: knowledge, independence, and the patience to wait until the right moment. Because when that moment came, I wasn't just going to protect myself. I was going to make sure they understood exactly what it felt like to be left alone when you needed someone most. I didn't rush it. That was the hardest part. The old me, the Tyler who bent over backward to fix things, would have jumped in immediately, cleaned up Josh's mess, and let my parents pat themselves on the back for raising such a dependable son. But this time I waited. I let the silence drag on until they grew more desperate. And desperate they did. Mom started leaving long voicemails, her voice quivering between anger and pleading. "Tyler, you can't ignore this forever. Josh is your brother. Do you want him to go to prison? Is that really what you want?" Dad's tone was colder. "Son, the family's reputation is at stake. If you don't help, people will remember who turned their back." Every message was another brick in the wall I was building inside me. They didn't care about me. They cared about appearances, about keeping Josh afloat at any cost. That's when I made my move. First, I quietly compiled everything I had. Screenshots of Josh's bragging posts, timestamps that aligned with company expense reports, even side-by-side comparisons of his business dinners and the actual menus of the restaurants he'd flaunted. My training at work paid off. I knew how to present evidence clearly and how to highlight the inconsistencies in a way even a casual observer couldn't ignore. Then I reached out to someone unexpected. My cousin Mark, the same one who had tipped me off. Over coffee, I slid the folder across the table. His eyes widened as he flipped through it. "You've got enough here to sink him," he muttered. I nodded. "I don't want to destroy him, not yet. But I want him and Mom and Dad to understand that I'm not their scapegoat anymore. If they keep pushing, this gets out." Mark leaned back, whistling softly. "That's cold, but fair." The next day, I finally agreed to meet with my parents. They showed up at my apartment looking worn, as if the weight of Josh's mistakes had finally started to crack their perfect facade. Josh himself wasn't with them, which told me everything. They were shielding him, as always. Mom didn't waste time. "Tyler, thank you for finally agreeing. We just need your help to smooth things over. If you can step in, use your expertise, maybe talk to some people at the company." I cut her off. "I know exactly what Josh did. And so do you." Their faces froze. For once, neither of them had a script ready. I reached into my bag, pulled out the folder, and set it on the table. "This is what I've found. Every careless receipt, every post, every misused dollar. If I can figure this out in a few weeks, imagine what his company, or the police, could do." Dad's jaw tightened. Mom's hand shook as she reached for the folder, but I pulled it back before she could touch it. "You've spent my whole life telling me I'm stronger, that I don't need help, that it's my job to hold this family together while Josh gets to stumble through without consequences. Well, I'm done. I won't fix this for him. And if you keep trying to paint me as the problem, if you keep letting him drag my name through the mud, then this," I tapped the folder, "goes to the people who actually matter." The silence that followed was electric. For the first time in my life, I watched my parents pale, not from disappointment in me, but from fear. Real fear. Mom opened her mouth, but no words came out. Dad finally said, "You wouldn't. He's your brother. I met his eyes and spoke slowly, deliberately. You left me in a hospital bed to rot. You let him humiliate me in front of everyone. Don't think for a second I won't do what I have to. For once, they had no reply. And that's when I realized I had them. The power wasn't in saving Josh or in fixing their mess. It was in knowing I could end it all with a single decision and watching them squirm under the weight of it. But this wasn't the end. Not yet. I still needed to see how far they would go, now that the leverage wasn't theirs anymore. For a long moment, they just sat there, staring at me like they didn't recognize their own son. And maybe they didn't, at least not the version of me they thought they had molded all these years. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Tyler, you don't mean this. You're angry. You'll regret it. But I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt calm, steady, in control. I slid the folder back into my bag and stood. No, I regret giving you chance after chance. I regret believing that one day you'd treat me like family. But this? Standing up for myself? This is the first thing I don't regret. Dad's face hardened. If you do this, you'll be cutting ties. Don't expect us to be here for you. I actually laughed, a sharp, bitter laugh that startled even me. You weren't there when I needed you. You already cut those ties the night I was in that hospital bed. They left my apartment without another word, Mom clutching her purse like it was a lifeline, Dad's jaw tight with frustration. I thought that might be the end of it, but the fallout came faster than I expected. Within a week, word spread through the family. My parents had tried to spin their usual narrative, that I'd turned my back, that I was cruel. But this time, it didn't land. Mark, true to his word, had dropped a few hints to the right people. Suddenly, Josh's posts didn't look like harmless bragging. They looked like evidence. Whispers turned into questions, questions into judgment. For the first time, the golden boy's halo was slipping. And then the hammer fell. Josh's company launched a formal investigation. I didn't send the folder. I didn't have to. His trail was so sloppy that once people started looking, the truth unraveled quickly. Misused funds, falsified reports, personal expenses buried in company accounts. He was suspended, pending charges. My parents called me again, this time not with anger, but desperation. Tyler, please, you have to talk to them. Say he didn't mean it. Say it was a mistake. I listened, silent, until Mom's voice cracked. And then I said, evenly, no, you always told me not to make things about me. Maybe it's time Josh learns that same lesson. And I hung up. The fallout was swift. Relatives who once praised Josh began distancing themselves. Friends stopped returning his calls. My parents withdrew from family gatherings, too ashamed to face the whispers. The image they'd worked so hard to protect shattered in a matter of weeks. As for me, life went on. My promotion flourished into new opportunities. I deepened friendships, rebuilt the parts of myself they had tried to strip away. And every time doubt crept in, I remembered that night in the hospital. The loneliness, the silence, the ache of realizing I didn't matter to them. And I knew I had made the right choice. Months later, I walked past a cafe near my office and saw Josh sitting alone at a corner table, staring blankly at his phone. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered the photo he had posted while I lay in that hospital bed, the smug caption, "Finally some peace without him." And the sympathy vanished. I walked away without a word, my head high, my steps steady. For once in my life, I wasn't their scapegoat. I wasn't their fixer. I was free. And as the city hummed around me, I realized something simple but powerful. Sometimes the best revenge isn't ruining someone. It's refusing to let them ruin you. My name's Noah. I'm 29, single, and live about 2 hours away from my hometown. I work as a software engineer for a company that lets me work remotely, and I'm the kind of guy who prefers quiet over chaos, peace over drama. Which is ironic, considering I was born into a family that practically feeds on drama like it's oxygen. I'm the oldest of 3, and if you asked my mom, she'd say I came out of the womb with a stick up my shirt. Her words, not mine. My sister, Ava, is 27, gorgeous, loud, the type who turns heads and loves it. My brother Liam is 24, a walking mess of half-baked startup ideas and Instagram reels about manifesting wealth. You could say we're different. You'd be right. Thanksgiving has always been a battlefield for us. Every year, the same cast, same lines, same behind-the-back whispers passed like side dishes. But I kept showing up. Out of duty, I guess. Guilt. Or maybe I just kept hoping something would change. Spoiler alert, it didn't. In fact, last year's Thanksgiving was the beginning of the end for them. Growing up, I always felt a little out of sync with my family. Not unloved, but definitely misunderstood. I was the boring kid who didn't sneak out, who did his homework, who actually read the labels on shampoo bottles just to know what was in them. Ava was the golden child, the entertainer, the personality. My mom doted on her like she was some kind of royalty. Liam, the baby, he could burn down the living room and still be told he meant well. And me? I was the reliable one, the one who fixed things, the one who paid when someone forgot their wallet, the one who showed up. But slowly, over time, I noticed a shift. Maybe it had always been there, but something about getting older sharpens your senses. You stop brushing things off as just family stuff. You start noticing how often the jokes are aimed at you, how you're the punchline in every group conversation, how no one really asks how you're doing unless it's to compare or criticize. Last Christmas, I showed up with a thoughtful gift for everyone, handpicked, wrapped neatly, even a little note inside each one. Ava rolled her eyes at the scarf I gave her. "Oh, you still think I like purple?" she said. Then she laughed and added, "Noah still shops like it's 2005. Everyone chuckled. I smiled, but something twisted inside. Liam opened the tech organizer I got him, a really nice one, by the way, and said, "This is cool, but I kinda need cash more than this, man. No offense." My mom laughed, not at them, but at me. "He means well, Noah," she said. "Maybe next year just ask what they want instead of guessing." I remember the car ride home. Cold. Silent. I had the radio off, just driving through the dark highway, my own thoughts louder than anything Spotify could have offered. That was the first time I questioned why I even bothered. But I'm not stupid. I know family dynamics are complicated. I didn't expect parades or gratitude. Just maybe a little respect. A little warmth. Something. So this year, when my mom called in October and told me she was putting me in charge of the Thanksgiving reservation again, I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew exactly what that meant. It wasn't a request, it was a command. That's how it always is. I plan it. I pay the deposit. I coordinate the time. I confirm the head count. I accommodate everyone's allergies, diets, schedules. And I do it with a smile, because heaven forbid I push back. Same place as last year. I asked. No, Ava says it was too loud. We want that new French bistro on Franklin. Can you call and get us a table for 22? Should be easy if you call now. 22. I didn't even know who the other 10 were, but I nodded like I always did. I'll handle it. She hung up with a distracted, "Thanks, sweetheart," like I was her assistant, not her son. And maybe, in her eyes, that's what I was. I called the place, booked it, paid the $500 deposit with my own money, as usual. They needed a card on file in case of no-show. I didn't blink. I never do. A week before Thanksgiving, I got a text from Liam. No context. Just a screenshot of a group chat I wasn't in. It was Ava, my mom, 2 cousins, and him. The top message was from Ava. "Can't wait for Thursday. Let's toast to Noah's fashion sense. Someone please record his reaction when we give him that shirt." Then my mom chimed in with, "Be nice. But yes, let's get a group pic of him in it. We'll make it the family Christmas card." Liam followed up with, "I shouldn't be showing you this, but I thought you should know." I stared at the screen for a long time. The shirt was apparently some hideous inside joke, a bright neon yellow monstrosity with Mr. Spreadsheet printed on the front, a nickname Ava coined last year after I made a Google Doc for Secret Santa pairings. They were planning to surprise me with it during dinner, in front of everyone, record my reaction, and use it as the family Christmas card. Suddenly, everything from the last decade clicked. Every insult masked as humor. Every gift I'd given that was mocked. Every time I wasn't invited to the group chat. Every time I had to sit there, smiling through the burn. They didn't respect me. They didn't appreciate me. They tolerated me for convenience. I was the reliable one. The one who footed the bill, who played chauffeur, who absorbed the jokes. I wasn't family. I was a running gag. I didn't reply to Liam's message. I just locked my phone, leaned back on the couch, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. A storm was building inside me. Not loud. Not fast. Just steady. Controlled. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept replaying every slight I'd brushed off. Every time I convinced myself I was overreacting. But I wasn't. Not this time. This time, they crossed the line. This time, they didn't just mock me, they plotted it. They coordinated it. They thought it was funny. And I was done. But I wasn't just going to cancel Thanksgiving and ghost them. No, that would be too easy. Too predictable. I wanted them to feel it. To sit there, dressed up, smiling for the cameras, waiting for a meal that would never come. I wanted them to explain to 22 people why the host wasn't there, why there was no reservation, no food, no plan B. And I had an entire week to get it just right. The day after I saw that screenshot, I woke up early. Earlier than usual, anyway. Something about being betrayed has a way of jolting you awake before your alarm. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping black coffee, staring out the window like I was in some indie film. It was raining, go figure, and the whole apartment smelled like ground beans and bitter resolve. I didn't text Liam. I didn't text anyone. I needed to think. Really think. For 29 years, I played the good son, the dependable big brother, the one who cleaned up the messes no one acknowledged. I was the family's emotional janitor, quietly sweeping up the aftermath of every tantrum, every drunken argument, every passive-aggressive dinner jab. And until now, I told myself that was just part of being the oldest, the anchor, the peacemaker. But this wasn't peacekeeping anymore. This was surrender. I went to work that day, logged into Slack, responded to a few bug reports, but my brain was somewhere else. Every now and then, I'd glance at the tab with the reservation info for the French bistro. I knew what I wanted to do, but I also knew if I was going to go through with it, I had to let the betrayal simmer. I had to feel it fully. I needed the emotional receipts. So, like an idiot, I waited. That Friday, just 4 days before Thanksgiving, my mom called me. Not texted. Called. Which only happens when she wants something she thinks she can't say in writing. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, I listened to the message while pacing my apartment. Hey, honey. So, Ava had an idea, and I think it's just hilarious. We're going to have a little roast at dinner. Nothing mean, just some fun stories about everyone. You know, just to make it lighthearted. I told her we'd start with you since you're the oldest, and then go around the table. Hope that's okay. Oh, and can you call the restaurant and make sure they have enough wine options? We might need to bring our own bottles. Thanks, love you. I stared at my phone like it had slapped me. A roast. Of me. Starring Ava. That wasn't just passive disrespect anymore. That was deliberate humiliation, disguised as tradition. And my mother, the woman who should have had my back, was in on it. Laughing. Supporting it. Probably printing the cue cards herself. I should have known. The next morning, I finally replied to Liam's text. Thanks for the heads up. Don't tell them you showed me. He heart-reacted it, then didn't say anything else. I thought about telling him more. About the roast. About how sick I felt reading that voicemail. But something stopped me. Maybe because deep down, I didn't trust him either. After all, Liam was the king of fence-sitting. Always playing both sides. He'd rat on Ava, then party with her the next night. He'd borrow money from me, then complain to her that I was too uptight about finances. Still, he'd given me that screenshot. Maybe that was worth something. On Sunday night, Ava posted a story on Instagram. She was at a salon, getting her nails done. The caption read, "Prepping for Turkey Day, gotta look cute when I destroy Noah." The second I saw it, something in me snapped. I wasn't sad. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't even angry in the traditional sense. I was hollow, calm, focused. I stared at the screen for a good 30 seconds. Then I opened my email, pulled up the reservation confirmation, and hovered over the cancel button. Not yet, I told myself. Too soon. I needed them to feel safe first. Let them get dressed. Let them gather the guests. Let the night unravel in real time. But I knew now I was doing this. Monday morning came. I called in a few favors. Booked a cozy little cabin 3 hours north. Fireplace, lake view, Wi-Fi. The works. Just for a couple nights. I'd leave Thanksgiving morning, early enough to be off the grid by the time my phone started blowing up. That night, I got another text from Mom. Don't forget to bring your camera. Ava says you're the only one who knows how to get good lighting. Translation, come play photographer for your own public shaming. I didn't reply. Tuesday rolled around. I called the bistro, spoke to the manager. Told him I'd be canceling the reservation Wednesday night, but I didn't want to lose the deposit, so I asked about their policy. He said as long as I canceled by 8 p.m. the night before, I'd get 50% back. That worked for me. It wasn't about the money. It was about timing, theater, satisfaction. Then came Wednesday, the calm before the storm. Around 4 p.m., Ava sent a group text. Can't wait to see everyone tomorrow. For 30 sharp. No flaking. Noah, we're something other than black or gray, please. No one responded directly to me. But my mom chimed in with, he always looks handsome. Even when he's dressed like a thundercloud, lol. My aunt sent a laughing emoji. Then a turkey gif. Then the group chat quieted down. I turned off my phone at 7:59. At 8:01, I canceled the reservation. Then I packed. Thanksgiving morning, I got up before sunrise. Tossed my bag in the trunk. Filled a thermos with coffee. Played a soft playlist as I drove away from my apartment, away from the city, away from the expectation that I'd once again swallow my pride for a plate of dry turkey and backhanded compliments. 3 hours later, I pulled up to the cabin. It was quiet. The air was sharp with pine and distant lake mist. I lit the fireplace, made some tea, sat by the window with a book I knew I probably wouldn't read. My phone was still off, tucked deep in my bag. Time passed slowly, like it does when you're waiting for something delicious to rot. At 4:32 p.m., my Apple Watch buzzed. A missed call from Mom, mobile. Then another from Ava, ugh. Yes, I renamed her contact months ago. Petty? Sure, but satisfying. Then a third call from a number I didn't recognize, probably the restaurant, confused and scrambling. I waited. By 5:15, I turned my phone on. 32 missed calls, 11 voicemails, 27 texts. I didn't open any of them. Not yet. Instead, I sat down on the cabin couch, pulled the blanket over my legs, and poured a glass of wine. My watch buzzed again. This time, a text from Mom lit up the screen. Where are you? The restaurant says there's no reservation. There are 22 people here. Noah, this isn't funny. I let it hang there. Then came another, from Ava. Noah, seriously, WTF. Where's the table? We look like idiots. Call Mom now. I waited 5 minutes. Sipped my wine. Watched the fire crackle. Then I finally responded. Enjoy explaining to 22 guests why there's no food. No emojis. No punctuation. Just that. Seconds later, the phone rang again. I let it ring out. Voicemail. Then another. And another. I set the phone on silent, laid back, and finally let myself breathe. I'd never felt this calm in my life. But this isn't where it ends. Because what happened after Thanksgiving, when the truth started leaking, when the lies fell apart, and when Liam dropped a bombshell none of us saw coming, that's when things really blew up. And that is a whole other story. After the last ring faded into silence, I turned off my phone again and tossed it on the cabin's coffee table like it weighed 100 pounds. I stared into the fire, trying to let the tension in my chest melt away, but it clung to me like static. The silence was loud, the kind that echoes inside your head after years of people talking over you. For once, no one needed me to pick them up from the airport, to help set the table, to split a bill they forgot to Venmo. I was alone. Entirely. And for the first time, that wasn't a punishment, it was a choice. But choices come with consequences, even the right ones. The next day, Black Friday, I drove back home in the early morning fog. I didn't even stop for coffee. I just needed to be back in my space. My sanctuary. But as soon as I opened my apartment door, I could feel the weight of what I'd done catch up to me. My phone buzzed repeatedly as it reconnected to Wi-Fi. Dozens of unread messages, missed calls, voicemails, DMs, even a couple of emails. I sat down on my bed and just stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to throw it across the room. Another part wanted to scroll through every message, see how bad it got. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked my work email. A small reprieve. A client I'd been helping with a back-end redesign left a glowing review, CCNG my manager. Apparently, my bug fixes had improved their load times by 40%. I smiled faintly. It was the first good thing I'd read in days. Then I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. Something simple. Normal. I didn't want to think about what my family was doing, what stories they were spinning. I knew Ava. She was probably telling everyone I snapped or had a mental health episode. My mom would wring her hands and say she was worried sick, conveniently skipping over the part where she helped coordinate my public humiliation. Liam, though, I didn't know where he stood. Still on the fence, probably. I didn't check my texts until Sunday. That's when I hit the low point. The first message I read was from Ava. A screenshot of a Facebook post, already with over 100 likes. Her caption, well, Thanksgiving was memorable. Grinning face with sweat pro tip. Never count on the family spreadsheet guy to bring the stuffing. Or show up. The comments were even worse. He ghosted the whole family. Dude, that's cold. Was it a mental breakdown or just drama? Y'all should have cooked at home. Can't trust Noah with anything but Excel. And my mom had liked it. I didn't even know what to feel. Anger? Embarrassment? Some hybrid of both? I sat there, the phone warming in my palm, and for a second, I felt that familiar urge to shrink, to retreat, to apologize, even though I had nothing to apologize for. I could already hear their voices if I tried to explain. Why didn't you just tell us? It was a harmless joke. You overreacted. Again. But I didn't want to shrink anymore. I wanted to stand. Not for them, but for myself. Still, it hurt. No amount of resolve could dull that sting. I had canceled Thanksgiving to make a point, and they turned it into a meme. A spectacle. I didn't ruin their dinner. I gave them new material. I didn't text anyone back. Monday morning, I requested a few days off work. My manager, Karen, bless her, didn't ask for details. She just approved it and told me to take care of myself. I used that time to disappear, not from the world, but from their version of it. I started waking up earlier. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd go for walks before the city really woke up. Just me, the cold air, and the rhythmic sound of my own footsteps. I began journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. At first, it was just a brain dump. Anger, confusion, guilt. But slowly it shifted. I started writing to myself. Encouraging words. Honest reflections. Even dreams. I picked up old hobbies I'd let rot in the attic of my life. I dusted off my DSLR and started taking photos around the city. Light and shadows. Faces of strangers. Moments that didn't ask for permission to exist. I also began putting real energy into a side project I'd been playing with for years. An app for freelancers to manage their time and rates more efficiently. Nothing fancy, but something I believed in. I called it Anchor Time. Simple, steady, like I wanted to be. I worked on it in the evenings. A couple hours here, a couple there. It felt good to build something that was mine. Not for clients. Not for bosses. Not for family. Just me. Meanwhile, the texts from home slowed down. My mom sent one message a week later. Can we talk? I didn't reply. Ava didn't bother. She was too busy uploading edited photos from a Friendsgiving she hosted 2 days after the disaster. Caption: no drama, just good vibes. Liam texted once, a short and strangely neutral message. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you ever want to talk. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know if he was checking in or checking on me. But part of me appreciated that he didn't pretend nothing happened. 2 weeks passed. The silence became soothing. Then, one night, I got a message from someone unexpected, my cousin Jenny. She was Ava's age, but we'd never been close. She lived in Austin, worked in event planning, and only flew home for the holidays if someone paid for her flight. Her message was blunt. Hey, just heard what really happened on Thanksgiving. Wanted you to know I think what they did was messed up. I stared at it for a long time. Typed, thanks, then deleted it. Rewrote it. Deleted again. Finally, I just replied. Appreciate it. She responded immediately. Your mom's been spinning it like you bailed out of nowhere. But Liam told me about the shirt. And the roast thing. Not cool. You were right to leave. Liam told her. That surprised me. It also made me curious. That night, I finally called him. He picked up on the second ring. Noah. Yeah. A pause. I wasn't sure you'd ever call back. I wasn't sure either. He let out a sigh. Look, man. I didn't know about the roast until the night before. Ava told me while she was drunk. I thought she was kidding at first. Then Mom confirmed it the next morning. That's when I sent you the screenshot. I figured. Thanks for that. He hesitated. I should have said something sooner. Or stopped it. But I didn't know how. I didn't say anything. He added, you're not crazy. Or dramatic. They were planning to humiliate you. And it was disgusting. It was the first time someone in our family had said it out loud. I know, I finally replied. That's why I left. Another pause. They're still trying to spin it, he said. Mom's telling people you had a breakdown. Ava's pretending she's the victim. Dad's not saying much. But I told Jenny the truth. And she told a few others. It's spreading. I leaned back in my chair. That's not why I did it. I know, he said. But still, it matters. People are starting to see it. We talked for an hour. About everything. About childhood. About how Ava's jokes had always gone too far. About how Mom played favorites, even when she didn't realize it. About how Liam always felt stuck in the middle, unsure which version of reality to believe. He apologized again. This time, it felt real. I still didn't fully trust him. Not yet. But something cracked open between us. Something honest. After that, things moved slowly. Quietly. I kept working on Anchor Time. Posted a beta on a couple forums. Got some interest from freelancers. Even a feature request or two. It was nothing massive, but it was mine. It gave me momentum. Direction. I also started therapy. Found a guy named Marcus, mid-40s, kind eyes, no-nonsense tone. Our first session was mostly me ranting about my family. But by the third session, we were digging deeper. Patterns, boundaries, self-worth, all the good, uncomfortable stuff. One afternoon, he said something that stuck with me. You've spent your life being their scaffolding, holding up the structure while they climbed higher. But no one ever asked if you wanted to build your own. That line haunted me, in a good way. By mid-December, I started feeling like someone new. Not fully rebuilt, but standing, taller, straighter. Christmas was coming, and with it, the annual texts about travel plans and who's bringing what. Except this year, none came. Until one did. From my mom. Hi, sweetheart. We haven't heard from you. Just want you to know we'd love for you to join us for Christmas Eve dinner. No pressure. Just family. We miss you. I stared at it for a long time. Then I read it again. No pressure. Just family. Funny how she always thought those two things were compatible. I didn't reply. Not yet. Because what I was about to do, what I was about to become, wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. And Christmas? Well, that was going to be a turning point they'd never forget. Something changes in you when you stop waiting for validation and start designing your own life. It's not loud. It's not cinematic. It's just this quiet click in your chest, like a gear finally locking into place. That's where I was. It had been 3 weeks since Thanksgiving. 3 weeks since I canceled the reservation, vanished to a cabin, and watched my family's carefully choreographed dinner collapse. They'd spun their stories. Ava played the martyr. My mom played the concerned parent. Liam stayed quiet, which was loud in itself. And I stayed gone. But now I wasn't just gone. I was planning something. It started with a question I wrote in my journal one night. What would it look like if I stopped being their scapegoat and started being the architect of my own story? I underlined it 3 times. That was the seed. I wasn't thinking revenge, not at first. Just boundaries. Distance. A clean break. But then my mom sent the Christmas text. Hi, sweetheart. We haven't heard from you. Just want you to know we'd love for you to join us for Christmas Eve dinner. No pressure. Just family. We miss you. No pressure. Just family. The same family that plotted to humiliate me in front of 24 people. The same family that turned my silence into a punchline on Facebook. The same family that only missed me when I was no longer useful. And suddenly, it wasn't just about distance anymore. It was about balance. About showing them what it feels like to lose control of the narrative. To be the ones scrambling to explain themselves. To be at the mercy of someone else's silence. They wanted Christmas to be a reset. A sweep it under the rug kind of holiday. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. I was going to use it. Not just to prove a point, but to turn the tables completely. And I had just the plan to do it. First, I needed leverage. And leverage, I realized, wasn't about secrets. It was about perception. My family cared more about appearances than anything else. More than honesty. More than respect. More than actual connection. They lived for Instagram, for gossip, for approval from relatives they hadn't seen in 5 years. So I'd use that. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to let the truth slip out. Loudly, clearly, and in the most inconvenient place possible. But to do that, I had to re-enter their world. So I replied. Just one line. I'll think about it. My mom's response came less than a minute later. That's all I ask. We'd love to see you. Ava already made the place cards for the table. Let me know if you want to bring dessert. She was already pulling me back into the system. The chore wheel. The planning trap. I smiled, almost fondly. I used to fall for that. Used to think it was love. Now I saw it for what it was. Control. Over the next week, I did some quiet digging. Subtle things. I started with Jenny. We messaged a few times since Thanksgiving, just checking in. I decided to tell her the real plan. Okay, so? I might be going to Christmas Eve dinner. I texted. Her reply, what? What? I told her. Not everything, but enough. About the roast. The shirt. The fake concern. The photo they wanted to take for the Christmas card. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. That tracks, she wrote. Your mom posted some cryptic quote the other day like, family is who shows up even when it's hard. I rolled my eyes so hard I got a migraine. I laughed. Then I asked her a favor. I might need you to help me stir the pot a bit. Nothing cruel, just destabilizing. Her reply was instant. Say less. Next, I needed to re-engage Liam. He was the wild card in all this. Too quiet to fully trust, but too involved to ignore. I texted him late at night, when people are most honest. Thinking about showing up for Christmas. Not to make peace, just to watch. He replied after a few minutes. You planning something? I paused, then wrote back. Let's just say, I want to return the energy they gave me. Thought you might want front row seats. He didn't reply for a while. I thought maybe I overstepped. Then, I'm in. Just like that, I had my two allies. Now came the trickiest part, getting in without getting caught. I couldn't show up like old Noah. Quiet, helpful, holding a gift bag and swallowing insults. I had to play the role they gave me, until the moment I didn't. So I leaned in. I texted my mom asking what I could bring. She was ecstatic. Maybe that fancy spinach dip you made last year? Or wine. Ava's bringing dessert, and Liam's doing drinks. I replied, got it. Then I called the bakery near their house and placed an order for a custom cake. I told them exactly what I wanted on it, and frosting. It was subtle, but devastating. They didn't ask questions. I paid up front. The day before Christmas Eve, I called a local print shop and had them prepare something for me. A little booklet, professionally bound. Nothing flashy, just a clean white cover with one word on the front. Receipts. Inside, screenshots. Of the group chat where they planned the roast. Of the Facebook posts. Of the texts and DMs Ava forgot people could save. Of my mom liking every insult. At the back, I included a short letter. Just one page. I didn't write it to be cruel. I wrote it to be clear. It ended with this line. This isn't revenge. This is a reminder that silence is not the same thing as forgiveness. I printed 7 copies. One for each person who had played a part in what happened. I wasn't going to hand them out myself. I had a better idea. Christmas Eve arrived faster than expected. I dressed well. Not fancy. Just enough to look unrecognizably unbothered. New coat. Clean haircut. Calm expression. As I pulled up to my parents' house, I spotted Jenny's car parked a few houses down. She'd agreed to arrive a bit late, and to time her entrance perfectly. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. Ava greeted me first. Oh my God, look who decided to show up, she said, arms wide, like we hadn't spoken in months, because we hadn't. I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. My mom came over next, wearing her Christmas apron and a tense smile. Noah, you look good. Are you feeling better? I tilted my head. Better than ever. She blinked, unsure how to read that. I handed her the cake box. Spinach dips in the kitchen. And the cakes, well, you'll see. She raised her eyebrows, but took it. I made the rounds. Greeted cousins. Avoided small talk. Observed. Liam gave me a nod from across the room. Subtle. Solidarity. Then, 20 minutes in, right on cue, Jenny walked in with a bright red tote bag. She hugged a few people, then found me near the bookshelf. Drop point, she whispered. I handed her the small white box containing the 7 receipts, booklets. Dining room table, I whispered back. She winked. With pleasure. And then, she accidentally spilled her cider on the living room rug. Cue chaos. My mom and Ava rushed to clean it up. While they scrambled, Jenny slipped into the dining room and quietly placed each booklet on the seats. One per plate, just before dinner. Then she returned to the living room like nothing had happened. The final piece? The cake. My mom finally brought it out after dinner, smiling like she'd just won an award. Everyone, time for dessert. Noah brought a cake. Ava grinned. This better not be carrot. Then my mom opened the box. Silence. Because written across the top in perfectly neat cursive frosting were the words. Thanks for the roast. You could have heard a pin drop. My mom stared at it. Ava's mouth opened, then closed. Liam laughed, quietly, into his glass. And I just leaned back in my chair, watching the storm build, calm as the eye. Because the booklets were still waiting on their chairs. They just didn't know it yet. The silence after my mom lifted the cake lid wasn't like the usual awkward pauses in our family gatherings. Those were mild, forgettable, patched over quickly with bad jokes or louder chatter. This silence was heavy, thick, a hum that filled the dining room like static right before a lightning strike. My mom stared at the frosting like it personally betrayed her. Ava's smile wavered, faltered, then completely dissolved. My dad, who had been strangely quiet all night, just exhaled slowly, like he'd been waiting for this moment without fully knowing it. The cake said everything. Thanks for the roast. It was the kind of message that wasn't angry, wasn't dramatic, wasn't frantic. It was calm, controlled. The tone of someone who knew exactly what had happened to them and was done pretending otherwise. Ava spoke first, her voice sharp. What is this supposed to mean, Noah? I shrugged lightly, leaning back in my chair. I thought it'd be a nice acknowledgement. Since you all put so much effort into planning that roast for Thanksgiving. My mom blinked rapidly. What roast? Nobody planned. Mom, I cut in gently. Please don't insult us both by lying with the cake still open. Her mouth shut instantly. Across the table, Liam coughed into his napkin to hide a laugh. Aunt Carla, who had zero tolerance for nonsense and even less for wasted dessert, squinted at the cake, then at me. What's going on? I didn't answer. Not yet. I wanted the timing to land perfectly. My dad cleared his throat. Maybe we should just cut the cake in. Actually, Ginny interrupted from her seat near the end of the table. You guys might want to take a peek at your chairs first. All eyes turned to her. Smooth. Subtle. Exactly what I needed. My mom frowned, confused, and lifted the edge of her place setting. And there it was. The booklet. White cover. Clean font. Receipts. She picked it up with trembling fingers. Slowly, the others followed. Page by page, the sound of paper turning filled the room like whispers. They read the group chat where Ava suggested the shirt, full of laughing emojis and bright neon mockery. They read the part where my mom agreed to kick off the roast with stories about how uptight I was. They saw the screenshot of Ava's Instagram story. Gotta look cute when I destroy Noah. They saw Mom's Facebook likes under every comment calling me dramatic, flaky, unreliable. They saw everything. No one spoke for nearly 2 minutes. I'd never seen my family still before. Not frozen, just still. Like someone had hit pause on the dysfunctional family sitcom we all pretended wasn't crashing toward cancellation. My mom finally looked up. Her face was pale, shaken at the edges. Noah, she whispered, where did you get all this? From the people you talked about it with, I said simply. Turns out not everyone was comfortable being a part of it. A hush cascaded down the table. People shifted, avoided eye contact, cleared throats. Ava scoffed, but it lacked her usual confidence. This is ridiculous. You're blowing everything out of proportion. It was a joke. That's the problem, I replied. You think disrespect is a personality trait. Her jaw tightened. It wasn't meant to hurt you. Then why were you planning to film it? I asked. Why did you want my reaction for your Christmas card? I paused. Why did Mom approve it? My mom's gaze dropped instantly. Ava opened her mouth, probably to lie, or to twist the narrative into something she could survive, but my dad beat her to it. Ava, enough. The entire table stared at him. Even I did. My dad had always been a gentle hum in the background of family chaos, present but muted, halfway between observer and ghost. Now he spoke with clarity. You and your mother went too far. You think everything is a joke because people laugh. But Noah, he looked at me, steady. Noah has been the only one keeping this family from falling apart. I swallowed hard. It wasn't praise. It was truth. And it hit with the weight of a decade. Ava's eyes welled, not with guilt, but frustration. This is insane. You're all ganging up on me over one tiny thing. One tiny thing. I repeated softly. A planned humiliation. A group chat I wasn't in. A roast about me, not with me. A shirt you made to embarrass me. Post you made online after I left. Say what you want, Ava, but this wasn't a joke. It was a pattern. Aunt Carla nodded sharply. She's right, you know. You've always picked on him. Ava glared. You don't even live here, Carla. And thank goodness for that, Carla shot back. The argument began unraveling quickly. Ava snapping, Mom defending her, Carla pushing back, cousins whispering, Liam watching everything with quiet satisfaction. Which was my cue. I stood slowly, letting the room fall back into silence. Look, I said, voice calm even. I didn't do this to punish anyone. I did it because I needed you to see it. Really see it. I'm tired of being the quiet one. The dependable one. The punching bag you all assume can take it. Their eyes stayed on me. For years, I thought I had to earn respect. Thought if I was helpful enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, eventually things would change. I shook my head. But I realized something these past few weeks. Respect isn't earned. It's mutual. And I'm done giving what I don't get. My mom's lip trembled. So what now? Now, I said softly. Now I take space. Real space. I'm not cutting you out. I'm not disappearing. But I'm stepping back. No more forced holidays. No more guilt trips. No more group chats I'm the punchline in. Ava looked panicked. So you're just leaving? I nodded. You left me years ago. I'm just finally returning the favor. Her mouth fell open, but no sound came out. No one else spoke. The crash had already happened. Now they were sifting through the rubble. I grabbed my coat, walked to the door, and opened it. The cold air hit my face like a reset button. Before stepping out, I turned back one last time. Jenny gave me a small thumbs up. Liam met my eyes and mouth. Good. My dad gave a nod of approval. My mom whispered my name, but not loud enough for me to answer. Ava stayed frozen in her chair, still clutching the booklet like it was evidence of a crime she didn't want to admit she committed. I stepped out and closed the door behind me. No dramatic slam, just a quiet, final click. Outside, the snow had started to fall, soft flakes landing on my coat, melting on my skin. The world was quiet again, but this time, the quiet didn't feel hollow. It felt peaceful, earned, real. I walked to my car without looking back, started the engine, let the heater hum to life. As I drove away, I realized something simple but powerful. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running from my family. I was walking toward myself. And that, I decided, was the best gift anyone could ask for. My name's Ethan. I'm 34, and if you ask anyone who's known me long enough, they'd probably describe me as the reliable one. The guy who shows up early, helps you move without complaining, and remembers to bring batteries for the stupid fairy lights no one else thinks about. I'm not flashy, I'm not the life of the party, and I'm definitely not the kind of person who makes headlines, unless it's for paying someone's tab without making a fuss. So when my younger sister Claire got engaged last year, it was no surprise when she asked me for help. Not emotional support. Mind you, Claire's never really seen me that way. No, she wanted help funding her dream wedding. And by dream, I mean extravagant. The kind of thing you'd see in a bridal magazine next to the phrase tastefully curated luxury with a touch of whimsical elegance. Her fiancé, Jason, is a decent guy, but between student loans and an entry-level design job, they weren't exactly rolling in cash. And my parents? Let's just say they spent more on their dog's orthopedic bed last year than they offered for Claire's wedding. Claire came to me with this tearful, over-rehearsed speech about how she didn't want a courthouse wedding, how she dreamed about this since she was a little girl, how I was the only one she could count on. And, like a fool, I agreed. Not all at once, but piece by piece. First it was the venue, this rustic chic vineyard 3 hours out of town. Then the dress, a custom lace monstrosity that looked like it belonged in a Victorian drama. Then came the catering deposit, the photographer, the florist, the freaking horse-drawn carriage she wanted for her fairy tale exit. Every time I asked about the budget, Claire would just laugh and say, "Don't worry. You're investing in love." And every time I asked about reimbursement or whether Jason's family would chip in, I got some variation of, "You know they're not in a position to help. But you are." At some point, I stopped seeing the invoices as numbers and started treating them like a running joke. Oh, another $1,800 for calligraphy on the invitations? Hilarious. Oh, the DJ wants extra for uplighting and a custom playlist? Sure, let me just sell a kidney. But I grinned through it. I told myself I was doing this for family, that it'd all be worth it to see Claire happy, walking down the aisle, knowing I made it possible. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I got the email. It was a forwarded confirmation from the wedding planner. She'd sent out the final headcount to the venue and vendors, 92 guests. I skimmed through the list, mostly out of curiosity, wondering which of our old cousins made the cut. I scanned, then rescanned. My name wasn't there. I thought maybe it was a mistake, a typo. So I called Claire. She picked up sounding chipper. "Hey, I was just about to text you. We're doing the final fittings this week. Can you transfer the last payment to the caterer by Thursday?" I cut straight to the point. "Claire, I'm not on the guest list." Silence. Then a soft exhale, the kind people do when they're about to say something awful but want to sound gentle. "Ethan, look, we really wanted to keep the vibe fun and relaxed. And, well, sometimes you can be a little tense. You know, like awkward at parties." "Tense," I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "I mean, you don't even dance, Ethan. You're always standing in the corner. Jason's friends are all super social, and I just thought, it might throw off the energy if you were there." "Claire, I paid for this wedding. I know. And I'm so grateful, seriously. You made this possible. But that doesn't automatically mean you have to be there, right? You're kind of more behind the scenes. Like the foundation. Invisible, but important. There was a ringing in my ears. For a second, I didn't say anything. Then I asked, does Mom know? She said it was your decision if you wanted to sit it out. Sit it out. That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of rage. Not even sadness, really. It was something deeper. The kind of hollow feeling you get when you realize someone's been looking straight at you for years, but never really saw you. Claire didn't see a brother. She saw a wallet with a pulse. And my parents? They just went along with it because it was easier than rocking the boat. After all, I always made things easier. I sat at my desk, rereading the vendor contracts I'd signed over the past year. There was a florist, high-end, specialized in elaborate installations. The DJ was flown in from another city because Claire didn't want a local vibe. The cake was this triple-tiered monstrosity with edible gold leaf and a sculpted sugar swan. Each one had my name on the contract. Each one had my card on file. Each one still had a clause. Cancellation permitted up to 72 hours in advance, partial refund depending on terms. That's when the idea began to form. Not all at once. Not in a flash of rage. But in slow, cold clarity. I didn't yell. I didn't send a dramatic group text. I didn't even tell them I knew. I just waited. 3 days before the wedding, I made the calls. I was polite. Calm. Professional. Yes, unfortunately we'll have to cancel. No, we won't be rescheduling. No, I understand the partial forfeiture of the deposit. Yes, thank you for your understanding. Most of them were gracious, even sympathetic. The DJ asked if everything was okay. I told him the couple had made other arrangements. Then I turned off my phone. Not because I was hiding, but because I didn't want to hear the chaos as it started. I woke up the morning of the wedding to 12 missed calls. The first voicemail was from Claire, her voice trembling, asking if I'd seen what's going on. The second was my mother, frantic. Ethan, please, there's been a mix-up, call us back right now. The third was Jason, who had never called me before in his life. His message was just, dude, what's going on? And that was before they realized the florist wasn't coming. Before the DJ stopped responding. Before they wheeled out a frozen grocery store cake someone's aunt had panic bought that morning. I didn't go to the ceremony, but I did get a text from one of Jason's groomsmen later that evening. It just said, the silence after the vows was deafening. I waited 3 full days before I answered a single message. Not because I needed time to think. I'd already thought it through the moment Claire said I ruined the vibe. No, I waited because I wanted the dust to settle just enough for the panic to turn to confusion, and for the confusion to simmer into full-blown resentment. The silence on my end wasn't out of cruelty. It was strategy. You see, when you've always been the helper, the fixer, the behind-the-scenes guy, people don't know what to do when you simply stop. When I finally turned my phone back on, the first message that loaded was from Mom. Call me immediately. This has gone too far. That made me laugh. Too far. As if I had stormed the ceremony with a megaphone and set the place on fire. All I did was withdraw what I paid for. The wedding didn't fall apart because I sabotaged it. It fell apart because they never once thought to build anything on their own. The next few texts were from Claire. The tone was like a tragic little symphony, each note worse than the last. She texted, Ethan, the florist never showed. What's going on? DJ says the booking was canceled. Are you pranking me or something? This isn't funny. People are arriving and there's no music and no flowers. The cake isn't here either. I can't believe you would do this. After everything I said about how important today was. I'm done with you. That one stung. Not because I believed her, but because of how quickly it came after months of, you're the only one I can count on. Monday morning, I got a call from Dad. I let it ring twice. On the third try, I answered. His voice was tight, like he was clenching his jaw while trying to sound reasonable. Ethan, we need to talk. I leaned back in my chair, sipping coffee like it was just another workday. About. Don't play dumb. Claire's wedding was a disaster. Guests were standing around like idiots. There was no music, no food, and her cake looked like it came from a gas station. Interesting, I said. And what do you want me to do about that? He was quiet for a beat. You know what you did. You think this was clever? Petty revenge because your name wasn't on the list. You're damn right I think it was clever, I replied calmly. Also accurate. He exhaled sharply. She's your sister. I set my mug down. And I was her sponsor, apparently. Funny how that never seemed to conflict with her ability to uninvite me from something I paid for. That wasn't her call alone. Then whose was it? Silence again. Then he said, "You embarrassed this family." Everyone was talking. People left before the ceremony even ended. I didn't embarrass anyone. You all did that yourselves. You took my money. You used my kindness. And when it came time to treat me like a human being, you told me I was too awkward to be seen. I paused. I don't know what's worse, Claire for saying it, or you and Mom for nodding along. "You're being dramatic," he muttered. "No," I said. "I'm being done." And I hung up. That night, Claire sent me a photo. It was a blurry picture of her bouquet, wilted, clutched in her hand in front of an empty reception hall. The caption just read, "Hope it was worth it." I didn't respond, but I did take a moment to look at that photo, to really study it. The backdrop, the cheap folding chairs, the awkward lighting. A wedding that cost over 30 grand and still managed to look like an office party at a rental hall. I thought about the friends she had uninvited for similar reasons. Her college roommate, who talked too loud. Her fiancé's cousin, who had bad skin and would ruin the aesthetic. It was never just about me. I was just the first one to finally say no. 2 weeks passed, and then the message came. It was from Jason. "Jason, Tuesday, 9:08 p.m. Can we talk?" Now that got my attention. Up until now, he'd stayed mostly quiet, probably trying to avoid taking sides. But something about the timing, the sudden break in silence, felt deliberate. I waited a few minutes, then replied, "Talk about what?" He wrote back almost instantly. "Claire wants to fix things. She's been crying every day. She thinks maybe we went too far." I stared at the screen, unsure if I should laugh or feel vindicated. Instead, I wrote, "You don't get to disappear me and then ask for a do-over because your party sucked. Jason, she knows she messed up. But you really hurt her too, man." That did it. I called him. He answered on the first ring. "Ethan, look." "No," I interrupted. "You look. You don't get to call me man and act like this was mutual. She made her choices. Your wedding was a monument to entitlement, and I was the sucker who funded it. I didn't hurt her. I just stopped letting her use me." "Okay," he said after a pause. "But now what? You cut off your whole family forever." I thought about that. Then I said, "No, I'm just starting to let them feel what I've felt for years. Invisible, replaceable, easy to exclude. Let's see how they like it." There was no response, and I didn't need one. The next few weeks were quiet, unsettlingly quiet. No sarcastic text from Claire. No veiled jabs from Mom. No guilt-trippy calls from Dad asking if I was ready to be mature yet. For the first time in years, the family group chat went silent on my end, like I'd been surgically removed from it. And that should have felt peaceful, maybe even freeing. But it didn't. It felt calculated. Then, in mid-June, I got a package. No return address. Just my name, handwritten across the front in delicate cursive I recognized instantly Claire's. For a moment, I considered not opening it at all. But curiosity won out. Inside was a photo album. Leather-bound, expensive-looking. The kind you'd give as a gift at a wedding, assuming everyone had actually shown up for it. On the front cover was a gold-stamped title, "The Best Day Ever." I nearly rolled my eyes into next week. But I flipped it open anyway. The first few pages were empty. Then came a handful of blurry, low-light photos clearly taken on someone's phone. Jason standing alone near the altar. Claire posing in her dress, no bouquet in hand, no flower arch behind her. A group shot of maybe 10 people, half of them looking away from the camera. Then one of Claire and my mom, both trying to smile, but looking off to the side like they were hoping someone, anyone, would fix things. Then the last page, a single photo of me, cropped from a family barbecue years ago. I was setting up chairs, half smiling at someone just out of frame. Beneath it, in Claire's handwriting, "We missed you." It hit me harder than I expected. Not because I believed it, but because, for the first time, it looked like she might have meant it. That same night, I got a message from my cousin Jenna. We weren't super close, but she'd always been the one to sneak me the real family gossip, like the time my dad accidentally lost my birthday check from Grandma. Her message was blunt. "Claire's trying to spin the story. Says you ruined the wedding out of spite. She told Aunt Sharon you canceled everything the day before just to hurt her." I stared at the screen. "Of course," I replied, "and no one's mentioning the part where she didn't even invite me?" Jenna sent a laughing emoji. Then, "You know how they are. Perception over truth." That was when I realized something. My silence had created a vacuum, and Claire was filling it fast, painting herself as the victim, the bride who was sabotaged by her jealous, bitter brother. She had always been good at controlling the narrative, playing the part of the misunderstood golden girl who just wanted everything to be perfect. I'd been content to let her stew in the fallout. But this was different. This was her rewriting the story before I had a chance to tell it. So I decided to correct the record. I didn't rant. I didn't post some long expose. I just did one thing. I forwarded the email, the original vendor list with her CC'd, the one where she clearly approved the guest list, the one that listed 92 names without mine. I sent it to every person she tried to spin. Aunt Sharon, Uncle Greg, Cousin Jenna, even Mom's church group, who had been whispering prayers on her behalf. No caption, no explanation, just facts. The backlash was almost immediate. Jenna messaged again, this time with a screenshot of Claire's frantic response in a different group chat. He's trying to turn everyone against me. This is just what he does. Makes people feel sorry for him so he can look like the victim. And underneath that, one of the cousins simply wrote, "Did you or did you not uninvite him?" No response. The next few days, things began to shift. Slowly, subtly. Mom sent me a half-hearted message. Maybe we all made mistakes. But you airing dirty laundry isn't helping either. I replied, neither is pretending I wasn't humiliated by the people I trusted most. Then came the email from Jason's dad, a quiet, professional man I'd met maybe 3 times. He thanked me for my discretion and generosity and added that he'd had no idea the financial burden of the wedding was handled so unevenly. He also included a scanned copy of a canceled check, one that Jason had supposedly written to Claire for shared expenses. It had never been cashed. I stared at that image for a long time. Claire had told me she and Jason were both contributing. But clearly, Jason had tried, and she'd pocketed the money without telling him. Or worse, told him I'd covered it so she could keep the check as a fallback. That was the moment I stopped being sad and started being done. I started a spreadsheet. I listed every invoice, every vendor, every payment with dates, amounts, and whether they were fulfilled. I pulled receipts, call logs, even text confirmations from vendors. Then I compiled it into a PDF. No message, no drama, just facts. And I sent it to Jason. An hour later, he called me. He sounded like he hadn't slept in days. "Ethan," he said, his voice low. "I had no idea. She told me you offered, that you insisted on paying. She said I didn't need to chip in because it was your gift." I said nothing. "She lied to me," he whispered. "About everything." Still, I said nothing. Then, very quietly, he added, "I think she's planning to ask you for money again. For the honeymoon refund. Says the airline owes her, but she needs help following up." I didn't reply to Jason that night. I needed time to cool down, not for my sake, but to make sure I didn't let emotion cloud what I needed to do next. Claire had spent the past year treating me like her silent investor. I was a line item in her wedding plan, not a brother, not a person. And now, after everything had collapsed around her, she was still angling for more. A refund from the honeymoon airline? Are you kidding me? No, I was done. The next morning, I got up early and poured myself a cup of coffee, like I always did. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and created a folder called Family Closure. It was time to stop waiting for apologies that would never come and finish this on my own terms. First, I contacted a lawyer. Now, I wasn't planning to sue anyone, not really. But I wanted to know what I was entitled to, legally speaking. Over $30,000 had gone into that wedding from my account, and at least $18,000 of it was for things that were canceled because Claire decided I was too awkward to attend. That included the florist, DJ, cake, and even the photography package that was slashed in half when the photographer found out they wouldn't have a full schedule to cover. In each of those contracts, I had the right to partial refunds due to cancellations. So I filed, quietly. My lawyer sent polite, formal requests to each vendor for refunds where applicable. Some had already sent back a portion when I canceled, others still owed me. One, the DJ, offered a full refund when he realized what had happened and actually apologized, which was more than I could say for my own family. Then, I had the lawyer send a notice to Claire. It wasn't aggressive, I didn't want to go scorched earth, but it was clear. It outlined how much I had paid, what was canceled at her instruction, and how much I was requesting in reimbursement for unfulfilled services. I wasn't asking for the whole wedding cost, just the parts that she effectively threw away when she decided I wasn't right for her big day. I sent it certified mail. A signature was required. 3 days later, I got a notification it had been delivered. Then, the phone call started. First, Mom. She left a voicemail with that passive-aggressive sweetness she uses when she's trying to act like everything's normal. Hi, honey. So, your sister got a letter? Something about lawyers? Let's not make this into a big family thing, okay? These things happen. Let's all just take a breath and talk it out. I didn't call back. Then came Claire. A text first. I can't believe you're actually doing this. Over flowers. I ignored it. Then another. I made one mistake. 1. You're acting like I burned your house down. And then, when I still didn't reply, Claire texted, You're sick. You've always been jealous of me. This is who you really are. That one made me laugh out loud. Jealous? Of what? Being disrespected by your entire family and left to pick up the pieces of your fake fairy tale wedding. The next message came from Jason, but it wasn't a text. It was an email. Subject, apology, and something you should know. Ethan, I've been thinking a lot since we spoke. I owe you more than just a phone call, so I wanted to put this in writing. You were right. Claire lied. About the wedding, the guest list, even about the money. I found an old email she sent to her friend where she literally called you Plan B if Dad says no. She never planned to pay you back. Never even considered inviting you. She said it would be too weird having you there with her real friends. I'm embarrassed. And I'm angry. But I'm also grateful. You didn't know me the truth, but you gave it to me anyway. I've decided to take some time away from Claire. I canceled our honeymoon reschedule, and I've moved into my brother's apartment for now. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I need space to think. Thank you for everything. Seriously, Jason. I sat with that email for a long time. Reread it a few times. Not because I needed the validation, but because it was the first real acknowledgement I'd gotten from anyone in months. A week passed. Then 2. Claire never responded to the lawyer. The deadline came and went. So my lawyer filed the claim in small claims court. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet, official statement that I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. And then something unexpected happened. I got a message from my Aunt Lydia. She's one of those distant relatives who never really picks sides, but always knows everything. She'd seen the group chat drama, the emails, the forwarded receipts. And now, she was reaching out. Aunt Lydia, your grandfather would have been proud of how you handled this. Quiet, respectful, but firm. Don't let them make you feel guilty for having a spine. I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until I read it. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the principle. I'd spent my whole life doing the invisible work of holding things together. Quietly paying bills, showing up on time, never asking for credit. And the moment I stepped back, the whole structure collapsed, because they were never really holding me up. I was holding them. 3 months later, the court date came. Claire showed up looking tired. Hollow even. She didn't have a lawyer, probably didn't think it would go that far. When the judge asked if she had anything to dispute, she just stared at the table and muttered, No. The judgment was granted in my favor. $11,643 in reimbursable costs. She was ordered to pay it within 90 days. Outside the courtroom, she tried to speak to me. I didn't think you'd actually do it, she said. I looked at her and replied, That's the problem. You never thought I'd do anything. Then I walked away. It's been a year since the wedding. Claire made the payments. Late, but she made them. I used the money to fund a vacation I'd been putting off for years. Spain. Solo trip. No itinerary, no obligations. Just peace. I didn't cut ties with my entire family, but I stopped playing my old role. I stopped answering every call, stopped fixing every problem. I gave myself permission to be a person, not just a placeholder in someone else's story. As for Claire and Jason, they eventually reconciled, or so I hear. They're expecting their first child next spring. I'm sure they'll throw a huge gender reveal party. And I'm equally sure I won't be invited. And you know what? I wouldn't go anyway. Because I've finally learned something it took me 34 years to figure out. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not show up. I landed back home the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, suitcase in one hand and a box of pastries in the other, fully expecting chaos. My family was always loud, always quick to make a fuss about who brought what, who didn't call enough, who was dating who. That kind of noise, obnoxious but familiar, had been the soundtrack of every childhood holiday I could remember. So when I walked through the front door and heard nothing but the faint hum of the TV, It didn't feel quiet. It felt wrong. I called out. No answer. I walked past the entryway, past the kitchen where the oven was cold and the counters were bare, and found Grandpa sitting alone in his recliner, his old slippers barely hanging on his feet. He was watching some old Western. He didn't even look over when I dropped my suitcase. Where is everyone? I asked, already pulling out my phone to check for messages I might have missed. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he just pointed toward the dining table. I walked over slowly, already feeling my stomach twist into a knot. On the table was a half-folded note, written on the back of an old grocery list. Used your bonus for our vacation. He's your problem now. Happy Thanksgiving. I just stood there, rereading it. My first reaction was laughter. Not the kind where you're amused. More like the kind that leaks out when you're so stunned your brain doesn't know where else to go. I kept waiting for a camera to pop out. A gotcha, or some prank gone way too far. But it never came. Just Grandpa's voice, soft and worn. Don't worry, kiddo. I'm Nate, 31. I work in IT consulting, the kind of job where people assume I fix printers, but really I spend most of my time explaining to execs that rebooting is a solution. It pays well. Not billionaire rich, but well enough that I've always had some padding. And for the last 4 years, I'd been padding a little extra. Rent for my mom's house, utilities, the occasional credit card bailout for my younger sister Kim, and yes, some care expenses for Grandpa, who'd been moved into my mom's place after his arthritis worsened. I never minded. Grandpa raised me when Mom was out partying or finding herself. He was the one who taught me how to tie a tie, how to cook eggs without burning the pan, how to listen more than I speak. The only reason I put up with the rest of my family was because he lived with them, or so I thought. Now here he was, left alone in a quiet house, wearing the same faded flannel shirt he always wore when he didn't expect company. I asked him when they left. He just shrugged. Tuesday, I think. They packed quick. Left before lunch. Thought you might still come, so I stayed up. Wanted to see ya. I felt heat rising in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just that mix of betrayal and disbelief that simmers before it erupts. I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. Tried Kim. Same. Then I scrolled through the family group chat. Empty, except for a selfie from my sister posted 3 hours ago. She was in a beach chair, drink in hand, with the caption, much needed escape. Hashtag family first. I almost laughed again. My bonus had come in the week before, $7,000. I hadn't told them directly, but I'd mentioned a nice surprise for Thanksgiving. That money was meant for Grandpa's care. Maybe even to move him somewhere quieter, cleaner, better. I had already spoken with a facility nearby, one with private rooms, garden walks, daily activities. He deserved that. Not this. I spent that first night unpacking my things into the guest room. I didn't say anything to Grandpa about the note. I could tell he'd already read it. His face was soft but distant, the way he looked when his bones hurt too much to argue. I made dinner from scratch. He insisted he wasn't hungry, then finished the whole plate. I tucked him in. He said thanks like he always did, and I stood in the hallway afterward staring at the wall, trying to figure out how you process something like that. How you respond when your own mother sees you less as a son and more like a walking debit card. Thursday came and went. No call, no text, no apology. Just more pictures, seafood dinners, pedicures, some blurry shot of a rented jet ski. Kim made a post thanking her incredible mom for everything. I turned my phone face down. Friday morning, I sat across from Grandpa with a spreadsheet open on my laptop. It was full of numbers, recurring payments, account authorizations, shared subscriptions, rent deposits. Over the years, they'd slowly crept in. My mom's mortgage had my name on the transfer. Kim's car lease was partially in my name. There were 3 phones on my family plan, only one of which was mine. It was one of those things that grew without me noticing. One favor, then another. Just for a month. Just until tax season. You know how it goes. Grandpa watched silently as I reviewed the damage. He sipped his coffee and said, about time. That afternoon, I made some calls. First to the phone carrier, then the bank, then the property manager. I wasn't loud. I wasn't angry. I just said I needed to make some adjustments. I'd been reviewing my finances, I explained. Needed to simplify things. Consolidate. The kind of language people expect from someone who sounds calm. By Saturday morning, the group chat woke up. First, a message from Kim. Hey, my phone isn't working? Weird. Can you check? Then my mom. Nate, our power got shut off? I thought you were handling that. Then a missed call. Another. 5 more. I ignored them all. Then came the email. Subject, urgent. Nate, what's going on? We're in another country and the credit cards aren't going through. Did you cancel something? Call me back ASAP. This isn't funny. I didn't reply. I just closed the tab and turned to Grandpa, who was watching football with a little smirk on his face. Think they've noticed yet? He asked dryly. I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. By the time Sunday rolled around, they had blown up my phone with over 40 calls. The voicemails got progressively more frantic, more accusatory. Mom went from "just call me" to "I don't know what your problem is" to "you've stranded us." Kim chimed in with "you're ruining everything," followed by "we have Grandpa, don't forget that." Except they didn't. Not anymore. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not just anger, not just betrayal. It was a quiet kind of clarity. I looked at Grandpa, who was humming along to some commercial and tapping his cane against the floor. And I realized, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't obligated to play the villain in a story they'd written. I wasn't their ATM. I wasn't their problem solver. I was their son, yes, their brother, but I wasn't their property. I picked up my phone, and right as I was about to send one final message, I heard tires screech outside. That's when everything changed. I froze for a moment, the phone still in my hand, Grandpa's light humming cutting through the sudden silence that followed the screech. Then came the frantic pounding on the front door. Not knocking, pounding. I stood, slow and deliberate, like my body was waiting for my mind to catch up. Grandpa didn't look away from the TV, but I saw his fingers tighten around the armrest. I stepped to the window, gently pulling the curtain back just enough to peek. There they were. My mom, hair disheveled, makeup smudged. Kim, standing slightly behind her, arms crossed and fuming. Neither looked like someone returning from a relaxing vacation. They looked like someone who had run out of options. Mom banged on the door again, her voice muffled but shrill. Nate, open the door right now. I didn't move. Not yet. They'd clearly flown home early. First class, no doubt, since they thought it was my treat. They probably expected to storm in, cry a little, guilt trip a lot, and patch things up just long enough to get the utilities turned back on and the credit cards unblocked. I could already picture it. Mom hugging me too tight, saying, "We're family," like that erases everything. Kim calling me dramatic with a smirk. Maybe even Grandpa getting dragged into it as their bargaining chip. But this time, I wasn't handing them the script. I turned back to Grandpa. "You want to go for a walk?" He looked up at me, surprised, then nodded once. "Sounds good." I helped him up, grabbed both our jackets, and led him toward the back door instead. It opened into the yard, which curved around to the street. From there, we could reach my car park just a few houses down. They hadn't seen it when they arrived, small favors. As we stepped outside, the cold bit my face, but it felt grounding. Real. My jacket was barely zipped when I heard the doorbell ring again. Then another hard slam. Grandpa chuckled under his breath. Bet they're not used to waiting. We made it to the car in silence, and I carefully helped him into the passenger seat. I drove slowly, looping around the block instead of passing the house directly. When we were a few streets over, I pulled into a quiet little park with a bench and turned off the engine. "Needed some air," I said. Grandpa nodded. "You're handling this better than I would have." That caught me off guard. I looked over. "Really?" He let out a sigh that came from somewhere deep. "You know your mom. She's always had a way of making people feel like they owe her. Your sister picked that up, too." "Me?" I stayed quiet for too long. "Thought I was protecting you by letting her run the house how she wanted." He looked straight ahead, eyes a little glassy. "But this? Leaving me behind like an old suitcase. That's a new low." The words hung in the car like smoke. I didn't try to comfort him. He didn't need that. He needed someone to see it. And I did. All of it. I broke the silence first. "They don't know about the new place." He turned toward me. "I signed the lease last month. 2-bedroom condo. Elevator access. Lots of light. Quiet neighborhood. I was going to tell you over dinner on Thursday. Thought we'd talk about it. Maybe go see it together Friday." But then, I didn't need to finish. He just reached over, patted my shoulder once, and said, "Let's go home, kid." When we pulled back into the neighborhood an hour later, the driveway was empty. They were gone. No note this time. Just silence. I kept Grandpa in the car while I walked through the house. Nothing seemed touched, aside from the front door being left slightly ajar. I closed it behind me and started gathering what few things of his they hadn't pawned off or boxed up badly. A few photos, some worn sweaters, a framed certificate from the community center. That's all he had here now. I packed quietly, methodically. Every folded sweater was another layer of distance between me and the role I'd played in this house for too long. Provider, apologist, peacemaker. By the time the sun started to dip, I had Grandpa settled in the new condo. It wasn't flashy, but it was his. Ours. A recliner already set up in the living room. The kitchen stocked. His medications labeled and shelved. There was even a small potted plant by the window, one I'd picked up months ago and kept alive with the thought that one day he'd sit beside it and read his old cowboy novels again. We ate takeout that night, sitting on the couch while the TV played low. He didn't say much, just looked around the place like it wasn't real, like at any moment someone would yank it away. But they wouldn't. Not this time. Then my phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. "You're being immature. Your grandfather is our responsibility. You can't just take him and ghost us. Call me." Then another from Kim. "What did you do? The landlord says we're 2 months behind. I thought you paid that. This isn't funny anymore." I set the phone down on the coffee table. Grandpa looked over. "Still begging." Something like that. I muttered. He smiled, slow and real. Guess they finally realized what they lost. I leaned back into the couch, exhaled deeply, and let that silence sink in. It was peaceful, for once. But the storm was only just beginning, because they still hadn't seen the envelope I left behind, sitting neatly on the table next to that crumpled note. It was Sunday night when I got the call from the building's property manager. I didn't recognize the number at first, but I picked up anyway, half expecting it to be another attempt by Mom using someone else's phone. Instead, it was Mr. Kessler, polite, reserved, and clearly confused. He'd always been courteous with me, mostly because I was the only one who ever responded to his emails about late payments or maintenance requests. He knew who the real tenant was, no matter whose name was on the lease. "Mr. Mitchell," he began cautiously, "I just wanted to check in. Your mother and sister came by today. They were under the impression that they still had access to the unit." I rubbed my eyes. "Did they cause a scene?" "A minor one," he said, with the tone of a man who had seen worse. "They said you were confused and that you'd made a mistake canceling their access." I told them, quite clearly, that the lease termination was processed, the locks were changed, and the security fob was deactivated last week. I thanked him and hung up. They were scrambling. They'd landed back in reality and found nothing waiting for them. No home, no power, no money, and now, no sympathy. I knew how they operated. They weren't just furious. They were embarrassed. And in my family, embarrassment was worse than being wrong. Mom had spent years curating this image of being the matriarch who held everything together. And Kim? She couldn't go 3 days without posting some story about manifesting abundance, while quietly draining every cent of mine she could get her hands on. They'd gotten so used to me covering the cracks that they didn't know what their life looked like without the filler. But I did. It looked like eviction notices, like bounce subscriptions, like a phone line that cuts off mid-scroll. And soon, very soon, it would look like a courtroom. Because that envelope I left on the dining table, it wasn't just a dramatic flourish. It was legal notice. Inside were copies of every payment I had ever made for them. Rent, groceries, medical bills, car payments, subscriptions. A full ledger, notarized, detailing 4 years of financial support, including receipts and bank statements. I had been keeping records for a long time, not out of spite, but because something in me always knew this day would come. And taped to the back of that packet was a single note in my handwriting. "He's not your problem. He never was. You are mine. Consider this the last payment. Good luck." They hadn't mentioned it yet. Not in the texts. Not in the voicemails. Which told me one thing. They hadn't read it. But they would. Because Monday morning, they'd find out the rest. I had filed a small claims suit that morning. Not for the money, though I had every right to, but for the principle. The paper trail was airtight. And while I didn't expect to win all of it, I knew just filing would light a fire they weren't prepared for. I wasn't trying to bleed them dry. I just wanted to make sure they couldn't pretend none of it happened. That evening, while Grandpa and I sat on the balcony watching the sky turn burnt orange, my phone buzzed again. It was a voice message from Kim. Her voice was tight, shaky. "You're being cruel. Mom's crying. We're not perfect, okay? But you don't just abandon your family. You don't get to rewrite history just because you're rich now. We're still your blood. That's gotta count for something, right? I stared at the screen for a long time after it ended. They always pulled that card when everything else failed, family. As if DNA was a coupon for unlimited forgiveness. As if their betrayal was a misunderstanding. As if leaving Grandpa behind like a used coat hadn't ripped a hole in me I hadn't even begun to process yet. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned to Grandpa, who had dozed off with his book resting on his chest. The pages fluttered a little in the breeze. He looked peaceful in a way I hadn't seen in years, like the tension had finally left his body. Like he didn't have to brace for the next insult or guilt trip. That's when I realized something. They had always believed they could shame me into silence. But now I had nothing left to lose. And that's when I made the final move, when I had been debating for weeks. I opened my banking app and canceled the automatic college fund transfers I had set up for Kim's kid. Not out of spite, but because no one in that household was going to teach that child the difference between love and leverage. And then I sent one last message to both of them. You didn't just lose your money. You lost your history. And trust me, you'll feel that a lot longer. The message was delivered. Read. Then nothing. No reply. But I wasn't waiting. Because tomorrow, they'd be meeting someone who had very specific questions about their taxes. I didn't sleep much that night. Even though everything was technically settled, the house packed up, the payments canceled, Grandpa safe, my mind kept turning over the same questions. How long had they planned this? Was it impulsive? Or had they been counting on my silence all along? And, maybe the hardest one, why had I let it go on for so long? I sat at the small kitchen table in the new condo, the one with a view of the courtyard garden, sipping lukewarm tea and watching the stars fade into the pale blue of morning. I heard Grandpa stirring in the other room. He always woke early, said sleeping in was a luxury for people who hadn't lived through ration stamps. When he shuffled into the kitchen, he didn't say much at first. Just nodded at me, pulled out his chair, and settled in like this was any other morning. But after a few sips of coffee, he finally asked, "You good, kid?" I nodded. "Yeah. You sure?" I paused. "I will be." That seemed to satisfy him. He leaned back, creaking slightly in the chair, and gave me a long look, one that saw past everything I hadn't said aloud. Then he chuckled and said, "Well, better late than never." We both laughed a little, and for the first time in a long while, it wasn't bitter. Later that morning, while Grandpa was watching one of his old game shows, I got a call from a blocked number. I let it ring out. Then a second one. Then a voicemail popped up. I played it out of pure curiosity. It was Mom. "Nate, I don't know what you want from me. We're not monsters. We were trying to give you space. Maybe we didn't do it the way you wanted, but we're family. You don't get to throw us away like garbage. You'll regret this one day, when we're gone, and you're left with nothing but your money and your pride." I listened to the whole message, then deleted it without saving. I didn't need it. I already had everything I needed. She still hadn't mentioned the envelope. But I knew she read it. Because by Tuesday, the emails started. First one from her. "Please reconsider the lawsuit. This isn't fair. We're not thieves." Then one from Kim. "Grandpa always said we should stick together. I guess you forgot that." And finally, a joint one from both of them, probably written with a thesaurus open. "This is a misunderstanding that's been blown out of proportion. Legal action is unnecessary and cruel. We should talk this out like adults. Please withdraw the case so we can heal as a family." That last one made me laugh. They wanted to talk like adults now? After 4 years of treating me like a walking wallet? After bailing on their own father to sip cocktails on a beach I paid for? Healing doesn't begin with lies. And it certainly doesn't begin with pretending you never left a man with arthritis and mobility issues sitting in a silent house on a holiday while you flaunted a gratitude getaway to your Instagram followers. So I replied, "Healing starts with accountability. You left him. You used me. And now you're upset I won't let you do it again." I didn't hear from them again after that. 2 months passed. The case never made it to court. The lawyer I hired sent over the documentation, and the threat of discovery alone was enough for them to offer a settlement, not because they were sorry, but because they didn't want their friends, neighbors, or employers finding out how deep the betrayal ran. They paid a fraction of what they owed. I didn't care. It was never about the money. It was about drawing the line. They signed the agreement, and with that, the door officially closed. I had it notarized, scanned, filed, and deleted their contact information for good. Not out of malice, out of necessity. When people show you what they are, it's not your job to repaint them. Life with Grandpa settled into a rhythm after that. Mornings were spent on the balcony with coffee and newspapers. Afternoons, he'd sit with his crosswords or watch old shows while I worked from my home office. We cooked dinner together most nights. He had this bizarre habit of adding mustard to everything, and I learned not to question it. And sometimes, when the sun was setting, he'd tell me stories I'd never heard before. About his time in the Navy, about my grandma, about how, when Mom was a teenager, she used to sneak out to meet some boy who drove a rusted truck and played guitar badly. One night, as we washed dishes, he looked at me and said, "You know, I always thought I'd end up in some nursing home, forgotten. Didn't expect to live somewhere like this. Didn't expect you to be the one who got me out." I smiled. Didn't expect to be the one who had to. He chuckled. "That's family for you." But then he got quiet, serious. "You did the right thing, Nate. You gave more than anyone ever asked you to. And you finally stopped when it was killing you. That takes guts." I didn't say anything right away. I just kept drying the plates. But deep down, something in me felt lighter. Like the silence had finally turned from punishment into peace. By spring, we were thriving. Grandpa had a routine, a new doctor he actually liked, and a community center nearby where he played cards with other retirees twice a week. I'd catch him smiling when he didn't think I was looking, a smile that wasn't for show. One that came from comfort, from finally feeling safe. As for me, I'd started therapy. Started saying no more often. Started living like my life wasn't up for auction to the highest emotional bidder. And eventually, I stopped checking my old inbox, the one tied to the family group chat. I figured if they needed to contact me, they knew how. But they didn't. And I was fine with that. Because healing doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes, it looks like boundaries. Sometimes, it looks like finally choosing yourself. And sometimes, it looks like sitting on a balcony with the only family member who never asked you to prove your worth, watching the sun set over a quiet courtyard, knowing that you don't owe anyone a thing but the peace you fought for. Grandpa nudged me one evening, holding up a glass of ginger ale. "To cutting the cord," he said with a smirk. I raised mine. "To never plugging it back in." And we clinked glasses, the sound small but final, like the last page of a book finally turned. My name is Adrian, and if there's one thing I learned growing up, it's that family doesn't always have your back. Sometimes, they'll smile to your face while handing everything you deserve to someone else. Sometimes, they'll make it clear you were never their priority. And sometimes, if you're really unlucky, they'll even laugh while they do it. I was the youngest in the family, with only one sibling, my older sister, Rachel. If you asked my parents, she was perfect. She was smart, responsible, the golden child who could do no wrong. And me? I was always just there. A background character in my own family. If she wanted something, she got it. No questions asked. And if I wanted something? Well, I needed to stop being so selfish and learn to share. It wasn't obvious at first, at least not when I was little. But as I grew up, I started noticing the pattern. Rachel got a brand new car on her 18th birthday. I got an old second-hand junker that barely ran. She went to an expensive college, fully paid for by her parents. I was told to take out student loans because they had already spent too much on Rachel's education. Every milestone in my life was treated as an inconvenience, something they had to deal with rather than celebrate. But the real betrayal? That came later. Our childhood home was everything to me. It wasn't a mansion or anything special, just a cozy two-story house with a big backyard where I used to play as a kid. It was the one place that always felt like home. My parents had owned it for decades, and they always said they planned to pass it down to us. I naively thought that meant splitting it equally between me and Rachel. I should have known better. I still remember the day they told me. I had just graduated college, scraping by on part-time jobs while looking for a real career. I was exhausted but hopeful, thinking that maybe, just maybe, I'd finally get something fair from my family. Instead, I came home to find my parents and Rachel sitting in the living room, all smiles and excitement. "Great news, Adrian." My mom beamed. "We've decided to give the house to Rachel." I blinked. "What?" "Rachel has a family now," my dad said, as if that explained everything. "She has a husband, a baby on the way. She needs the space. You're still young. You'll figure something out." Rachel just smirked, sitting there like a queen accepting her throne. "It makes sense, doesn't it?" she said. "I mean, you don't even need a house. It'd be wasted on you." And then, the part that still burns in my memory, my parents laughed. Actually laughed, as if the idea of me deserving a place to live was some kind of joke. I didn't laugh. I didn't smile. I fought. I argued. I reminded them that I was their son too, that I had worked just as hard, that Rachel getting married didn't mean I should be thrown aside like an afterthought. But they wouldn't budge. Rachel needs it more, they kept saying. You'll understand when you're older. I left that day with nothing but a sick feeling in my stomach and the knowledge that I wasn't welcome in my own home anymore. But if they thought I'd just roll over and accept it, they were wrong. I walked out of that house feeling like the air had been knocked out of me. It was the first time in my life I truly understood what it meant to be on my own. No backup, no safety net, just me. I wanted to believe that maybe my parents would come to their senses, that they'd realize how unfair they had been. But weeks passed, and nothing changed. Rachel moved into the house like it had always belonged to her, redecorating, changing things, erasing every trace of the childhood we had shared. My parents helped her settle in, acting like they had done something noble, something right. And me? I was left scrambling. I had no savings. My part-time job barely covered my student loans, and with nowhere to go, I had to crash on a friend's couch. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd find a job, get back on my feet, and everything would be fine. But reality had other plans. Finding a stable job was harder than I expected. Every rejection email chipped away at my confidence. My friends were supportive, but I could tell I was overstaying my welcome. I can see it in the way their smiles got tighter, the way they hesitated before saying I could stay as long as I needed. I couldn't blame them. No one wants a permanent house guest who can barely afford to chip in for rent. I applied everywhere: corporate jobs, retail, even restaurants, but nothing stuck. My parents knew I was struggling, and do you think they offered to help? Not once. When I finally caved and asked if I could stay for a little while, just until I got a steady paycheck, my mom sighed like I was being dramatic. Adrian, we talked about this, she said, her voice sickly sweet, like she was explaining something to a child. Rachel and her family need the space. You'll figure something out, you always do. Rachel, of course, had to chime in. Maybe if you stopped whining and worked harder, you wouldn't be in this mess. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palm. I am working hard. Rachel rolled her eyes. Then why are you still broke? That was the last time I asked them for anything. If they wanted to cut me out, fine. I'd do it on my own. For the next year, I bounced between cheap rentals, doing whatever I could to keep my head above water. I took jobs I hated, dealt with bosses who barely looked at me, and learned to stretch every dollar. There were nights I went to sleep hungry, mornings I woke up exhausted, but I kept going. Because I had one goal: make it out of this and never, ever need them again. And slowly, things started to change. I landed a job at a small tech startup. Low pay, long hours, but it was something. I threw myself into it, working late, taking on extra projects, learning everything I could. When promotions came up, I fought for them. When opportunities appeared, I grabbed them. While my parents were busy playing house with Rachel, I was building something real. And one day, after years of climbing, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. I had my own apartment, bigger than anything I'd ever expected to afford. My bank account wasn't just stable, it was comfortable. The kind of comfortable that meant I didn't have to check my balance before making a purchase. And best of all, I had something no one could take from me: independence. I thought I'd moved on. I really did. But life has a way of bringing things full circle. Because after years of acting like I didn't exist, my parents showed up again. And this time, they were the ones with nowhere to go. It started with a phone call. A number I hadn't saved, but one I recognized instantly. My mother. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. It had been years since she last called me. The last time we spoke was a half-hearted birthday text she sent out of obligation, one I didn't even bother responding to. So why now? Curiosity won over. I picked up. Hello. For a second, there was silence. Then, a hesitant, almost nervous voice. Adrian, it's Mom. I leaned back in my chair, waiting. I wasn't about to make this easy for her. Yeah. She exhaled, as if this call was some great burden on her. How have you been? I almost laughed. How have I been? Now she cared. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of knowing just how well I was doing. Fine, I said flatly. Why are you calling? There was a pause, then a strained chuckle. Straight to the point, huh? You always were so impatient. That's when I knew she wanted something. She always pulled the motherly guilt trip when she needed a favor. I waited, letting the silence stretch until she finally cracked. Well, we've run into a bit of a situation, she admitted, her voice careful, like she didn't want to give me too many details. Your father and I, things have been hard lately. We had to leave the house. I raised an eyebrow, even though she couldn't see me. Their house. They hadn't owned a house in years. They gave ours to Rachel, and last I heard, they were renting a small place nearby. What do you mean? Had to leave? I asked, my voice deceptively calm. She hesitated, and then, in a much smaller voice, she said, "We were evicted." That caught my attention. My parents were not the kind of people who got evicted. They had always lived comfortably, spending money without much thought. But hearing that single word, evicted, told me exactly how bad things had gotten. I leaned forward, resting my elbow on my desk. "How'd that happen?" She sighed, her tone shifting into self-pity. "Money problems, Adrian. We've had some bad luck. Your father's business took a hit. And, well, rent just kept going up. We fell behind." And she cut herself off, probably realizing she was revealing too much. Then, her voice brightened, as if she were just so excited to share the next part. "But it's all okay, because we figured it out. We just need a place to stay for a while, just until we get back on our feet." And there it was, the real reason for the call. I let her words hang in the air for a moment before I asked, "And Rachel?" Silence. I knew the answer before she even spoke. "Well," my mother started, her voice tight. She's going through a lot right now. The kids, you know. And her husband, he's been under a lot of stress. They don't have the space." I almost laughed. "They don't have the space? In the house they stole from me?" "Rachel has 4 bedrooms," I pointed out, "and a finished basement." "Well, yes, but," she scrambled for an excuse, but there was none. The truth was simple. Rachel didn't want them there. The golden child they had sacrificed everything for had turned them away. And now, after treating me like an afterthought for years, I was their only option. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I kept my voice neutral. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You gave away the only home we ever had. You laughed in my face when I asked for fairness. You ignored me when I was struggling. And now, after all that, you expect me to help you?" My mother let out a soft, nervous chuckle. "Oh, Adrian, don't be so dramatic. We're family. You know we didn't mean to hurt you. And besides, you're doing so well now. You have a big place, right? Plenty of space." Oh, so they didn't know I was successful. They must have been keeping tabs on me, even if they never reached out. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to just hang up right then and there. But I wasn't done yet. "Where are you staying now?" I asked. "A motel," she admitted. "But it's awful, Adrian. We can't live like this. Can't live like this." Funny. I remembered nights when I slept in my car because I couldn't afford rent. I remembered stretching a single meal across 2 days because I had nothing left in my bank account. I survived, without their help, without their pity. And now they were acting like they were the ones who had suffered. I exhaled, leaning back again. "I'll think about it," I said. My mother sounded relieved. "Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I knew you'd understand. Just let us know when we can come by." I said, "I'll think about it." I interrupted. Then, without another word, I hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, the screen still lit up from the call. My mother's voice still echoed in my head, dripping with fake sweetness. "Oh, Adrian, don't be so dramatic. We're family." Family. Funny how that only mattered when they needed something. I wasn't done yet. If my parents were desperate enough to come crawling to me, that meant one thing: Rachel had shut the door in their faces. And I needed to hear that for myself. I scrolled through my contacts, my thumb hesitating over her name. I hadn't spoken to Rachel in years. Not because of some dramatic falling out, but because she never needed to talk to me. She had our parents, she had the house, she had their undivided love and support. I was just an afterthought. A name on a Christmas card, if that. Still, I tapped the call button. It rang twice before she answered. "Adrian," she said, her voice filled with confusion. Straight to the point. "Hey, Rachel? Just got a call from Mom." There was a pause. Oh, that was all she had to say? I let the silence stretch before continuing, my tone casual. "Yeah, she told me they got evicted. Said they needed a place to stay. So why aren't they with you?" She sighed, the kind of exhausted sigh that people gave when they were about to justify something they knew was wrong. "Adrian, it's complicated." "No, it's not." My voice was sharper now. "They gave you the house. They prioritized you over me for everything. But the second things go south, you're suddenly too busy to help." She groaned, like this was inconveniencing her. "Look, it's not that simple. I have kids, Adrian. You wouldn't understand." "Oh, don't start," I snapped. "You think I don't understand responsibility?" I had to build my life from nothing because mom and dad made sure you got everything first. And now you're just, what? Pretending they don't exist. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I can't have them here, okay? Mark isn't comfortable with it. Ah, Mark. Her husband. The guy who had zero problems taking the house when it was handed to them on a silver platter, but suddenly had an issue when it came time to return the favor. Let me guess, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. It's too much stress for him? Maybe he thinks it's not fair to disrupt your life like that. Rachel hesitated, which told me everything I needed to know. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Wow. So now we care about fairness. Her voice turned defensive. Adrian, don't be like this. We all have our own struggles. That did it. That actually made me see red. Struggles. I repeated, my voice dangerously low. Do you remember when I was struggling, Rachel? When I had to sleep in my car because I didn't have enough for rent? When I asked mom and dad for help, and they laughed? Told me I didn't need a house because I didn't have a family to take care of? Silence. Yeah, I continued. But you didn't care then, did you? Because it didn't affect you. And now, when the tables have turned, you suddenly expect me to be the generous one. She let out another sigh, but this time, it wasn't exasperation. It was discomfort. Like she knew I was right but didn't want to admit it. I didn't make that decision, Adrian. Mom and dad did. Yeah, I said coldly. And you benefited from it. There was nothing else to say. I hung up before she could respond. I sat there, my phone still clutched in my hand, my heart pounding. My parents had raised Rachel to believe the world revolved around her. They had given her my home, my security, without a second thought. And now, when they needed something, she couldn't even be bothered to return the favor. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt some sense of twisted satisfaction. But all I felt was anger. And the thing about anger? It makes you want to even the score. I stared at my phone, my fingers tightening around it as I processed everything. My parents had always put Rachel first. They had made it clear that she was the one who deserved their love, their support, their home. And now, when life had finally caught up with them, she was just as quick to abandon them as they had been to abandon me. It was almost poetic. Almost. But the anger still burned inside me. I wasn't the same person I had been all those years ago, the kid begging for scraps of affection, the broke 20-something sleeping in his car, hoping for a break. I had built something for myself. I had carved out a life through sheer willpower and hard work. And now? Now, I had the power to decide exactly how this played out. I took a deep breath and opened my messages. My mother had texted me twice while I was on the phone with Rachel. Mom texted, Adrian, we just need a place to stay for a few weeks. I know you don't have kids, so it's not like it's a big deal. We wouldn't be a burden. A burden. I closed my eyes and let out a bitter laugh. They had always seen me as someone who didn't matter, someone whose needs weren't as important as Rachel's. I had spent my childhood watching them bend over backward for her while I got the leftovers. And yet, here they were, begging me for help. I knew I could end this right now. A simple no, and I'd be free of them forever. But that wasn't enough. I needed them to feel it. To understand, truly understand, what it was like to be cast aside like they had done to me. So, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove back to my childhood home. I parked across the street and just sat there for a moment, staring at the house that had once been mine. It looked the same, yet different. Rachel had changed the color of the shutters. The porch had new furniture. There was a playset in the front yard now, probably for her kids. This house had been my home once. My memories were woven into its walls, its floors, its very foundation. But now? Now, it was just another reminder of how little I had mattered to my own family. I stepped out of the car, my heart pounding, and walked up the driveway. I didn't even have to knock. Rachel had seen me through the window. She opened the door hesitantly, her expression wary. Adrian, she said, crossing her arms. What are you doing here? I glanced past her, into the house. Our house. Just wanted to see the place, I said coolly. Been a long time. Her eyes flickered with something, maybe guilt, maybe irritation. It's different now, she said. It's my home. I nodded slowly. Yeah, it is. She shifted uncomfortably. Look, Adrian, if you came here to argue, I don't have time for this. I already told you, I can't take them in. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her. You know, I said, it's funny. Mom and Dad justified giving you this house because I didn't need it. Because you had a family. And yet, the second they actually need something, you're just done with them. Her jaw tightened. You think I don't feel bad? She snapped. I have my own life, Adrian. I can't just drop everything for them. I tilted my head, but they expected me to. She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing she had no argument. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Just wanted to hear it from you, I said. Then I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, speechless. As I got back in my car, my phone buzzed again. Another text from my mother. Mom texted, Adrian, please. We don't have anywhere else to go. I stared at the message, my grip tightening around the phone. They had made their choice years ago, and now it was my turn. I let the phone sit in my lap, staring at the message. The same people who had laughed in my face, who had told me I didn't need a home, were now desperate for mine. The irony was almost too perfect. But I wasn't going to respond with a simple no that was too easy, too clean. They needed to feel it. They needed to understand. So I picked up my phone and dialed. My mother answered on the first ring. Adrian. Oh, thank God. We were starting to think you wouldn't. I cut her off. I just talked to Rachel. Silence. Then, cautiously, oh, did she tell you why she can't take us in? She told me a lot of things. I leaned back in my seat, staring at the house, her house. But what I really wanted to hear was whether or not she'd fight for you the way you fought for her. More silence. Then my father's voice, slightly muffled in the background. What's he saying? She's not taking you in, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. I guess you were right all along. She needed the house. She needed the family support. I let out a small laugh. Shame she doesn't think you need the same. I could hear my mother inhale sharply. Adrian, please, no, I said, my voice turning cold. You don't get to please me now. Don't be like this, my father suddenly cut in. His voice, the same authoritative, dismissive tone I had heard my entire life, made my blood boil. We're family. Families help each other. Oh, now we're family? I asked. Was I your family when you laughed in my face and gave away my home? Was I family when you told me I didn't need a house? When I was struggling just to get by while you lived comfortably in the home that should have been mine? That was years ago, my mother said weakly. We didn't know things would turn out this way. I clenched my jaw. Neither did I said quietly. I didn't know that being your son meant I was disposable. I didn't know that my whole life would be spent playing second to Rachel. And I sure as hell didn't know that one day, when you had nowhere else to go, you'd come crawling to me, expecting me to forget everything you did. Adrian, we're sorry. My mother tried again. But you have a big house, don't you? You have money now. You won't even notice if we stay for a while. I let out a humorless laugh. Just like you didn't notice when I had nothing? She faltered. You know what's funny? I continued. You didn't just take my house. You took away my sense of security. You made it clear that I wasn't worth fighting for. And now, the person you did fight for won't even lift a finger for you. Adrian, we raised you. My father snapped. We put food on the table. We gave you, what? A roof over my head until you decided I didn't need one? A childhood full of being ignored in favor of Rachel. I scoffed. You didn't raise me. You tolerated me. There was a long, heavy silence. Then my mother tried one last time, her voice desperate. Please, Adrian. We have nowhere to go. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes for a moment, then exhaled. And then, I gave them the same answer they had once given me. You don't need a house. I hung up. And this time, I wasn't the one left out in the cold. This all happened yesterday. I haven't answered any calls since, and I don't plan to. They've been blowing up my phone, alternating between guilt-tripping, fake apologies, and outright demands that I stop being petty and think about family. Even Rachel had the nerve to text me, saying I was being cruel. Cruel? Me? The same people who laughed in my face when I begged them not to take my childhood home are now calling me cruel because I won't give them a place to stay? I don't feel bad. Not even a little. But I'll admit, part of me is curious. Did I do the right thing? Should I have at least let them stay for a few days? Or is cutting them off completely the best decision? I know one thing for sure. I finally have the power in this situation, and I'm not about to hand it back. What do you think? My name's Mark, I'm 56, and I've been called a lot of things in my life. Dependable, stubborn, sometimes a bit too generous for my own good. But no one has ever accused me of not showing up, especially not for my son, Alex. I've shown up for every skin knee, every science fair, every school pickup. And when his mom left and remarried, I still showed up. Even when she and her new husband, Greg, started playing house and slowly rewrote history to make it look like I was some side character in my own kid's life. I swallowed a lot of pride over the years. I figured as long as Alex was happy and taken care of, I could stomach being in the background. I'd get my moments. Or so I thought. The wedding was supposed to be one of those moments. It started innocently enough. Alex called me one evening about 9 months before the wedding, buzzing with excitement. "Dad, we're doing a spring wedding. I want it outdoors, lots of greenery, real classic stuff." I smiled just hearing his voice so full of life. "That sounds amazing, bud," I said, already reaching for my checkbook. I didn't wait for him to ask. I just told him, "Whatever you need, I've got you." What I didn't realize was that whatever you need would turn into everything. Venue deposit? Me. Photographer? Me. Custom floral arch? Guess who? It was never outright demanded. Alex always sounded sheepish and grateful, but the requests stacked up like bricks, each one a little heavier than the last. I convinced myself it was fine. I wanted to help. I was the dad, after all. But as the big day got closer, I started to notice little things. Things that didn't sit right. The invitation came and my name was listed, barely. "With love from Greg and Sarah Williams," it read in looping gold script, with a tiny line underneath, and Mark. No last name. No title. Just an afterthought. Then the seating chart arrived. I was slotted in the third row initially, which I didn't mind. Close enough. But 2 weeks out, I got a call from the wedding planner, some perky 20-something who probably thought I was the hired help. "Hi, Mr. Mark. We had to adjust the seating a bit. You'll now be in row F, just behind extended family. Hope that's okay." I wanted to say, "No, it's not okay," but instead I said, "Sure. Whatever works." And then I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. Greg, the stepfather, had been stepping into my shoes for years. At first it was little things, teaching Alex how to drive, helping him choose colleges. I let it go. Divorce is complicated. Kids get caught in the middle. I didn't want to make it harder. But this wedding was becoming a circus, and I was starting to feel like the unpaid stagehand no one thanked at the end of the show. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was held at a vineyard, classy, high-end, and of course, funded by yours truly. I walked in wearing my best suit, bottle of wine in hand, only to find Greg already holding court at the main table. "Mark," he called out with a grin that felt a little too rehearsed. "So glad you could make it." Could make it. I paid for it. Throughout dinner, he told story after story about raising Alex, throwing around memories I'd never even heard of, some of which I was sure weren't even real. He toasted Alex and his fiancée, Chloe, with a long speech that made it sound like he'd been the one tucking Alex in every night, not me. And when it was my turn to say a few words, the microphone wasn't passed to me. It wasn't even offered. I just sat there, gripping the stem of my wine glass until my knuckles turned white. Chloe's parents patted Greg on the back like he was some kind of hero. Sarah, my ex, beamed beside him, draped in the kind of smug satisfaction that said this is the man who raised your son right. And Alex? He didn't say anything. He looked happy, content, like he didn't notice the absence of my voice. I told myself to wait for the actual wedding. Maybe that would be different. It wasn't. I arrived early the morning of, ready to help with setup. I figured I'd at least be useful. But when I got to the venue, the staff looked confused. "Are you with the catering team?" one of them asked. Another handed me a clipboard. "Here, you can help direct parking." I didn't correct them. I just went and sat in my car for 20 minutes until the ceremony started. The music swelled. The guests took their seats. I was in row F, just behind Great Aunt Patty, who spent the whole service leaning over to whisper that she thought I was taller on Facebook. From where I sat, I could barely see the vows. Greg was up there front and center, grinning like he'd won the lottery. He signed the marriage certificate, gave the toast, danced the first dance with Alex's mom while I watched from a folding chair near the bar. Every time I raised my hand to wave or say something, someone else stepped in. A friend, a cousin, the DJ. I was a ghost at my own son's wedding, but I smiled. I clapped. I posed for pictures, even when they shoved me to the edge of the frame. I told myself over and over, this day isn't about you. And I almost believed it, until the end of the night. People were clearing out. Staff started folding chairs. I stood alone near the fountain, sipping what remained of my flat champagne, when Greg walked up. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, gave me that smug little grin, and said it, soft and casual like it was nothing. "Thanks for covering everything, old man." Something in me cracked. He didn't say, "Thank you for helping." He didn't say, "We couldn't have done it without you." No. He called me old man like I was the valet. Like this had all been expected, and I had served my purpose. I didn't say a word. I just looked at him, nodded once, and walked away. Back at my car, I sat in the dark for a long time. My phone buzzed, messages from relatives, wedding photos, a video of Greg's speech. I ignored them. Instead, I opened my banking app. I had set up automatic transfers to cover the rest of the wedding costs, the honeymoon package, the vendor tips, final venue fees. None of them had cleared yet, and that's when I made the call. I didn't hesitate. My fingers moved fast, too fast for second thoughts. I called the bank's fraud line, not because anything fraudulent had happened, but because that's the only number where you can reach an actual human at that hour. A woman named Michelle answered. Friendly voice, chipper, like she had no idea she was about to become part of a family soap opera. Hi. Yes, I said, keeping my voice calm. I need to freeze some pending transfers. No, not all of them, just the ones scheduled for Monday. Yeah, the large ones. She asked me to verify my identity. I rattled off the answers like a robot. My heart was thudding in my chest, not with panic, but with something I hadn't felt in a long time, control. May I ask why, sir? She said once we were done. Just to note it on your account. I paused. I almost laughed. Change of plans, I said simply. The wedding's over. She confirmed the transfers were on hold, and I hung up. I sat there a while longer, the cool air slipping in through the cracked window. I watched the last of the guests shuffle out, tipsy and oblivious. Greg was still inside somewhere, probably holding court and basking in the spotlight. Alex was with Chloe, posing for the last few professional shots. I watched my son, my boy, from a distance, and for the first time, I didn't feel like his dad. I felt like a sponsor. I'd been funding this whole fantasy like some invisible investor. I paid for the cake they smeared on each other's faces. I paid for the chairs they didn't offer me. I paid for the music I was too far away to hear. And all the while, everyone around me smiled and nodded like that was normal. Like I was supposed to be grateful to sit in the back and watch my role get erased. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. The anger came the next morning. I woke up early, like always. Muscle memory from decades of early commutes and weekend soccer games. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my email. The first was from the venue. Final payment reminder, due today. The second, from the honeymoon travel agency, complete with a PDF itinerary and a polite note. Please confirm release of funds so we can secure the upgraded suite for Mr. and Mrs. Williams. Williams. Not Morgan. Not my name. Not my legacy. Greg's. I stared at the screen, stunned. Even the honeymoon reservation had been booked under his name. My bank account, his credit. That's when I knew I hadn't just been sidelined. I'd been replaced. Everything clicked into place then. The way Sarah always introduced Greg as Alex's real father, at parties, always with a wink like it was a joke. The way Alex had started calling him dad a few years ago, casually, in front of me, then pretending not to notice the way I went quiet. The way Greg had slowly become the point of contact for all the wedding vendors, all the family emails, all the decisions. They hadn't just overlooked me. They had rewritten me. I spent the rest of the morning reviewing the contracts. I still had the originals, PDFs, scanned receipts, all of it. I may have been naive, but I wasn't stupid. Everything had been in my name. Every vendor, every deposit, every planned gratuity. Some of the final payments hadn't even been invoiced yet. I called the travel agency first, told them there was a mistake. I said I wouldn't be releasing the funds after all, that the reservation needed to be updated. If they wanted payment, it would have to be under a different name. A legal one. Mine. They said they'd have to call the couple. I said, be my guest. Then I called the caterer. Told them the final check would not be coming through unless I got an updated invoice. Same with the lighting company, the string quartet, the photographer. And each time, I said the same thing. Let them know Mark Morgan has questions. By noon, the calls started coming in. The first was from Sarah. You can't be serious, she snapped, skipping hello entirely. You're trying to embarrass your own son? No, I said. But I'm done being embarrassed by you. You made a promise. No. I made a contribution. You decided it came with no say, no seat, and no respect. She sputtered something, but I ended the call. Then came Chloe's dad. Nice guy, or so I'd thought. Look, Mark, can we talk about this? He said. You're going to ruin their honeymoon over a few bruised feelings? I didn't get my feelings bruised, I said. I got erased. Alex didn't call until that night. I stared at the screen when his name lit up. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Dad, he said, uncertain. I didn't reply. I heard about the bank stuff, the honeymoon, the vendors. What's going on? There was genuine confusion in his voice, and for a split second, I felt a pang of guilt. Until I remembered how he'd hugged Greg at the altar, how he'd raised his glass to him with tears in his eyes, and never once looked my way. I'm just settling up, I said. But you said you'd cover it. I did. And I did cover a lot. But apparently, that wasn't enough for a mention, or a seat near the front, or even a name on the marriage license. There was silence. I didn't know. That makes two of us. He went quiet for a long time. I'm sorry, he said finally. And I believed that he meant it. But it didn't change anything. Because the moment Greg called me old man, like I was just a wallet in a suit, something inside me shifted. I had spent years letting people take from me in the name of being the bigger person. I had been quiet. I had smiled. I had clapped. I had paid. But not anymore. And the best part? They still had no idea what else I had planned. I didn't tell Alex everything on that call. I let him sit in the discomfort of it. Let him twist a little, like I twisted in that back row, pretending to enjoy the show. He asked if we could talk in person, said he'd swing by sometime this week. Maybe bring Chloe. I told him to text first. I wanted time to think, to decide how much truth I was willing to lay bare. Because what they didn't know was this: the wedding wasn't just funded by my bank account. It was organized, contracted, and legally signed off under my business name, Morgan Solutions, my consulting firm. I'd written it all off as a sponsored event, under the umbrella of company outreach and partnership branding. It was clever accounting, sure, but also necessary at the time. And that meant the ownership of a lot of those services, photos, footage, even the venue's post-event publishing rights, technically belonged to me. Not Alex. Not Chloe. Not Greg. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I dug into the files again. I hadn't looked at them too closely since the chaos of booking things in the spring, but now I had a different set of eyes. Focused, deliberate, and just petty enough to start drawing lines through the fine print. The photographer, for example, had a clause buried deep in the agreement. Client retains full discretion on final image release, including approval or disapproval of publication or personal use if payment is not completed within 30 days of final event. Guess who hadn't been paid in full? I shot off a quick email. The videographer was a friend of mine, an old army buddy I'd hired when no one else answered fast enough. We hadn't talked in a while, but I knew he respected loyalty. I texted him, "Hey, hope you're good. I'd like to hold off on giving the couple the final wedding video for now. There's more going on than you realize." He responded, "Say no more. Got your back." I leaned back in my chair after that one domino at a time. By Thursday, the calls started getting frantic. This time, it was Chloe. She never called me before, always filtered communication through Alex or her parents. But now she was the one calling me. "Hi, Mr. Morgan," she started, syrupy sweet. "We're just trying to figure out what's going on with the photo release and the video. We're supposed to be doing a wedding announcement this weekend for social media, and the photographer said they're waiting on your approval? Was that a mistake?" "Nope," I said. "That's correct." A long pause. "Oh, okay. Will that be coming soon?" "Depends. Have you talked to Greg recently?" There was an awkward laugh. "Not really? I mean, we thanked him at the wedding, if that's what you mean." "No," I said. "I mean, did he tell you he thanked me by calling me old man and walking off with all the credit while I sat 6 rows back in a suit I couldn't even afford 5 years ago?" She was quiet now, probably realizing for the first time that I wasn't just Alex's dad in the vague, distant way she'd always assumed. I was the reason they had a wedding at all. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "Right. Okay. Maybe we should meet. We'll see." I ended the call before it got messy. I wasn't looking for an apology from her. Not yet. I was still in the stage of collecting silence, letting it pile up, letting them sit in the absence of answers. You'd be surprised how loud silence gets when people are used to everything just working. Friday came, and I got a knock on my office door. I didn't expect it, but there he was. Greg, wearing his usual smug half-smile, dressed in that slightly too tight blazer he always wore when he wanted to look distinguished. He walked in like we were old pals. "Mark," he said, pulling the door shut behind him. "Look, I think there's been some confusion. Is that what we're calling it now?" He sighed, took a seat across from my desk like he owned the place. "Look, I get it. You feel slighted. But we both know you did what any dad would do." "Greg," I interrupted, "stop. Just stop. You walked over to me at the end of my son's wedding, patted me on the shoulder, and thanked me like I was the caterer. You didn't introduce me once. You didn't mention me in your toast. And you watched them list your name on that certificate like I never existed. He shrugged. It's just tradition. I've been in his life for a long time. We didn't mean anything by it. That's exactly the problem, I said, voice cold. You didn't mean anything. And now you want me to smile and sign checks like it's all good. He leaned forward, smirking again. So what? You're holding their wedding media hostage? Not very fatherly of you. That's when I stood. I wasn't loud. I didn't shout. I just looked down at him with the calm you get when you've already made your decision. You think you replaced me, I said. But Greg, you were just a stand-in. A seat filler in the story of my son's life. And now the bills come due. His smirk faded. I let that sit in the air. Heavy. Then I walked around the desk, opened the door, and gestured for him to leave. He did. But he looked back once, like he wanted to say something, or maybe finally realized I wasn't bluffing. Too late. Because what they really didn't know was this. I'd also retained creative control over the wedding video's final cut. And I had just received the raw footage. Everything, every toast, every awkward exchange, every stage photo where I was cropped out, every clip where Greg positioned himself like a second coming of Ward Cleaver while I fetched drinks and smiled from the sidelines. And I had one more phone call to make. But that's where things start to get interesting. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of guilt. No, I was past that. I stayed up because something in me was alive again. For years, I'd let people edit me out of my own life. I kept peace. I kept quiet. I kept writing checks. But now I was scripting the final act, and I wasn't going to miss a single detail. I sat in my office surrounded by invoices, notes, digital footage pulled frame by frame from the videographer's raw dump. My son's wedding in 4K, every hug I didn't get, every glance that went past me like I was scenery. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was surgical. The next morning, I called Chris, the editor I'd hired to cut together the wedding video. Hey, I said, quick change of plans. I've got a list of timestamps for you. Anything from 12:02 to 12:09? Cut it. Toasts? I want mine added in, but I'll send you a voiceover instead. Don't worry, I'll keep it classy. But the part where Greg calls Alex the son I always dreamed of? Yeah, trim that. Chris paused. You sure? That's like the big emotional moment. I'm sure. Also, at the end, I want the credits to roll with a note, made possible by Mark Morgan. Bold letters. Center screen. No music. He laughed, thinking I was joking. I wasn't. By Sunday, the final draft was done. I reviewed it once, then sent the private link to Alex and Chloe. I didn't include a message, just the link. 4 hours later, Alex called. Dad, what is this? A wedding video? I said calmly. Edited by the guy who paid for the whole thing. Figured I might want a version where I actually exist. He was quiet. I waited. I mean, come on. You didn't have to do that. Didn't I? I said. Because when your mom rewrote history and Greg signed the certificate with his name under father of the groom, nobody said a word. When I sat 6 rows back and nobody even mentioned me in a toast, you didn't say a word. When I opened my wallet to give you a dream wedding, you let someone else take the credit. So don't tell me what I had to do. You already showed me where I stand. He tried again. Look, I messed up. I should have. Should have what? Remembered I existed? You didn't forget, Alex. You chose. And that's fine. I just made a choice too. But what about the vendors? Mom said you canceled everything. The florist threatening to sue us. No, I didn't cancel anything, I said. I just froze the money. Told them to send the bill directly to the Williams household. Since they seem to think Greg's the patriarch now, he can foot the final costs. Or your mom can. I heard him sigh. They can't afford it. Neither could I said, sharper than I intended. But I made it work. Because I thought I was doing it for my son, not for an audience. Another long silence. He finally muttered, I don't even know what to say. I did. Say goodbye, Alex. And I hung up. I thought I'd feel something after that. Relief. Grief, triumph, but I didn't. I just stood there for a moment, phone in hand, feeling nothing. And honestly, that was worse. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Radio silence. No calls. No texts. No attempts at fixing anything. I assumed that was it. Until one evening, there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was past dinner and already dark outside. When I opened it, I saw Chloe. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks, messy bun, dark circles, that flat kind of smile people wear when they're running on fumes. "Hi," she said. I stepped aside. She walked in without waiting. "I just want to talk," she said, settling onto my couch like she'd been here before. Not ask for money. Not ask for favors. Just talk. I didn't offer coffee. I just sat in the armchair across from her. She took a deep breath. "Alex isn't talking to his mom right now," she started. "Or Greg. The fallout's been bad. His mom's furious, Greg's humiliated, and his aunt told everyone at brunch last weekend that you hacked the wedding video like some bitter teenager." I didn't reply. She kept going. "But I watched the video. Twice, actually. The version you edited. At first, I thought it was mean. Petty. But then, I noticed something." I raised an eyebrow. "I noticed how often you weren't in the frame. How people kept stepping in front of you. How no one even looked at you when they were saying their vows. And then I noticed the way you smiled anyway. How you stood off to the side, clapping. Holding the umbrella when it started to drizzle, even though no one asked you to. I watched your face, Mark. And I realized, we forgot you. Not just at the wedding, but before that. In everything. Still, I didn't say a word." She wiped at her eyes, embarrassed. "I don't blame you for pulling back. I really don't. But I just wanted you to know. I see you now. I really do." She stood up, straightened her coat. "Alex wants to come too. But I told him he needs to wait. Because if you ever give him another chance, it's going to be on your terms." She turned to go, then paused at the door. "By the way," she added, "that thanks for covering everything, old man, line?" Greg said that in front of the videographer too. It made the raw footage. "That's probably why the video guy sent it to you. Said he figured you deserved to see the truth." And then she left. I sat there a long time afterward, thinking about all the things I'd done right. And all the ways I'd been written out anyway. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired, but not weak. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is finally stop giving people the pieces of you they never respected in the first place. The final bill for the wedding ended up going unpaid. Greg apparently tried to negotiate down some vendors. Chloe's parents chipped in for some. But the venue? The caterers? The florist with the $3,000 invoice? They took legal action. The last I heard, Sarah was trying to file a claim with her homeowner's equity to cover some of it. Greg stopped showing up to family dinners. Alex moved out of the apartment his mom leased them and got a cheaper place, said he wanted to figure some stuff out on his own. I didn't ask what that meant. A month later, I got a letter. Just a short one. No long apology. No grand gesture. Just Alex's handwriting on a plain white card. "I don't know if I deserve to be your son anymore, but I want to try being the kind of man you don't have to erase." I haven't replied yet. Maybe I will someday. But for now, I've still got the original wedding video. The real one. And I keep it in a drawer, not to watch, but to remind myself. I may have been silent for a long time, but that doesn't mean I was ever invisible. And I won't be again.